Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Black Spinner Music Podcast. And today we got a new segment that we are going to try out. It's called One and Done. And what the idea
All
of
right,
this
see you
segment,
later.
yeah, that's it.
Bye.
That's it for now. That is one and done. What the concept is that we're gonna have a band and go through their albums in order and pick our favorite song from each album, which is one and done. You can only pick one. And today we're starting off with one of the most influential bands of all time, the Beatles. So today we're doing one and done with the Beatles. And we got a great panel with us tonight. A great panel of Beatle aficionados. Starting off with Charles Trainer from the BS Sessions with with Mark and Jerry with Charles. How's it going, Charles?
Pretty well. Also, the Freeform Rock
Oh,
podcast.
yes, the Freeform
Oh,
Rock podcast.
yep,
Yep.
glad to be on. I'm a huge Beatles are the greatest band that ever existed and my favorite band of all time. So, it's an honor to be on.
Oh, well, thanks for being on. I forgot that you're now a regular on the Freeform. That's fantastic. Congratulations on that. Because it's a good show. It's a really good concept. I like that. That they talk about the albums, but they also play their favorite tracks on there. And that's really cool. And also with us today, we have Al Hortza for the Be Cool or Beat podcast out. It's exciting to
Yeah.
have you here.
Thank
And
you
we
for
have
having me.
no problem. Thanks for being here with us. And we
And
also
now,
have,
and you know, before you get to Kate over there,
yeah.
you're doing Beatles one and done. So, hey, the greatest band of all time. Then that's it. The show's over. After this,
Easy
it's a
peasy. We're all set.
where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna go from here?
Well, from here we'll start to trickle down.
Yeah, you start to go down.
You gotta start at the top.
We'll do the Stones next month.
And we had that battle, and we know Beatles is the greatest band ever.
It's a few more steps down. Also we got Kate Doré from the International House of Vinyl and Vinyl Street.
Hello.
If there's
Hello.
anything on vinyl that you're looking for, hit her up. And
I'll
she
try
will
and find
for
it.
you. Or she might have it in the 6,000 records she's got in her basement somewhere.
Maybe. The worst part of that, they're upstairs, so my house could collapse at any minute.
Oh, jeez. I thought that you keep that in the basement, no?
Nope.
Hey, Charles and Kate, have y'all been on a podcast before together?
No, Charles, this is a new meeting. We had a lot of conversation in the Beatles chat that we had, but this is
Yeah.
the first time we've met officially face-to-face-ish.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, and ma'am. That is true.
All right.
Yes.
First time. Hey, Al, do you want to go out and come back in?
Oh yeah.
Oh, the
Always me.
clicky. It's okay.
It's his little pet. It's his little pet mouse.
He has like a little hamster typing things on his keyboard.
His keyboard's going, this is boring. This is boring. No, but I'm so excited that y'all are here with me to do this. So this segment we're gonna start with Please Please Me all the way to Let It Be, and then we will hit up the Past Masters. Now, if y'all aren't familiar, you guys out there, the Past Masters are a collection of their A and B sides, their singles and their B sides, which was really a stroke of genius, a marketing genius to put all that together. So without further ado, let's get started. We'll go in order with Charles, Kate, Al, and myself. So let's get started. Please Please Me is the album that we're gonna pick one and done from. That's where we're gonna start it. Charles, what are you gonna pick off of Please Please Me?
Well, bear in mind, as I said off the air, I just looked at all the track listings. I've listened to these songs so many times, I really didn't need to sit and listen to them all again to decide. So it was first come, first serve. When I looked at it, all right, that's the one. Bam, made the list. Have not looked back on it. Have not edited it. Not sweated it. I went with my first instinct, and I put no covers at all.
I did no covers as well.
Same here.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So Charles, what is it? Oh, did you freeze?
Uh-oh.
He'll come back. I think it's cold in Poland right now.
All right.
Wait, hold on. Let me nudge him real quick.
Yeah.
Right.
And it comes back.
Oh, okay,
Charles,
well,
are you there? Charles.
is that his
He's so
stand-in? Is
he's
that
so
his
dumb.
stand-in?
He's so dumbfounded right now. It's like, what song do I
Oh, there
pick?
he goes.
Okay. Okay, hopefully
Okay.
it'll come up. Okay. So let's start with Kate. Kate, what's your first one off of Please Please
So
Me?
all the UK releases. So Please Please Me, March of 1963. I went with P.S. I Love You, McCartney. A lot of these earlier ones, obviously, there's a lot of covers, some of them half covers. I didn't pick anything that was a cover, even though some of the covers they do are some of my favorite songs on their albums, but I wanted to go with their stuff. I'm way more into like the psych stuff. So getting into later when we talk about like Rubber Soul and everything past that's
Okay,
more what my go-to is when I listen to Beatles. But
Yeah.
obviously, like everything, I mean, it's hard to not like these sweet teenage songs of unrequited love kind of thing. So yeah, so I went with P.S. I Love You.
All right, good pick. We'll get to you after Al, Charles.
Okay.
Okay. Al, what's your pick off of Please Please Me?
Well, I went the Charles route, and I didn't like. When I looked at all these track listings, I didn't overthink it. I was just like, boom, what's the first one that really like hit me? You know, that just came to my mind, and I looked at, and I'm like, so I mean, you can go crazy trying to pick one off of each album. So I went in with the mentality of just don't overthink it, man. Just go with your gut, your heart, whatever. So off of Please Please Me, I'm gonna go Love Me Do. Because when I was a kid, I don't know, when I was a real little kid, I just always remembered this song and I always loved it. And I always loved the harmonica in it and stuff like that. And I love the way they harmonized in the song as they do a million of their songs. But I don't know, just this one out of the whole album, this one just brings back memories of really some of the first music I remember really kind of hearing and remembering as a kid, and I definitely remember this song, and the harmonica riff always kind of intrigued me as a kid, and again they're singing, so I'm going with Love Me Do on this one.
And I'm also Ringo's drum, boom,
Yeah,
boom. I mean, it's just so great.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos, what's your first track? Are you
Okay. Yes, my first track is pretty easy because it's actually my alarm clock tone. I hear it every morning when I get up. With the world famous 1, 2, 3, 4. I saw her standing there.
yeah.
Oh,
I think
nice.
it gets started excellently. I think it's also a great opening track on anything on the planet. And Please Please Me is really cool because it was actually just recorded live in studio as a band. George Martin thought with the limited experience they had, that'd be the best way about going about it. And it is what you get, man. That's as raw of a recording as you can ever get. So
You're just straight up playing and press record.
yeah.
Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me to get prepared for this was the opposite of Charles and Al. I picked about 3 or 4 different tracks and I heard them over and over, and then I really did labor over this. And then even today, even this morning, I changed this pick. I actually had a cover first, and then I wanted to do a original. First, I had Twist and Shout, just because that performance alone is fantastic. But I did switch it to a great harmonizing track called "There's a Place," which is towards the end. Love that song. I think that they are harmonizing perfectly on there, and that's kind of a deep track, but it's a great track. There's a place. Look at that. We all 4 picked different songs.
I like
What
it.
did Kate? What did you pick again?
I did P.S. I Love You.
That's it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's a great one
And
too.
this album,
I mean, they're all great. It's so hard. This whole thing was like me arguing with myself. like I said in the chat when I was talking to you guys, it was like it'd be just as hard for me to pick a song I hate off every album. Like it's so hard to pick what you like because there's just so many great songs and so many songs that, like you guys said, like they remind you of when you were a kid or like you really first realized what music you're listening to, and you can really remember and like isolate like a time period in your
Mhm.
childhood of when you started noticing music.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
got this when I was in high school, and
Hmm.
it's all that boy loves girl and this and that.
Hmm.
So this
Hmm.
album I played
Well,
over
once
and over.
once you start having feelings for other people and
Yeah,
realize like all these things, and you're just such a hormonal disaster, but then you have like real
yeah, music.
relationships and things happen
Yeah,
too where you really do care about someone, and it's not just infatuation. Like
yeah, yeah,
that's a big thing, that there's like a big turning point in your mind, and then these songs are a whole different level too.
yeah. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next track. I'm sorry. Next album with the Beatles, their second one. I
Hmm.
think we're still in '63, right, guys? The end of
Yeah.
'63,
Yeah, November. Yeah,
November
that's quite a
'63.
few, or like beginning of the year to the end of the year, and they get 2 albums out, and
Yeah,
it's like
yeah, yeah.
that's what's so nuts about these too.
I think that's what Brian wanted was 2 albums and 2 singles,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's what they
He was
did with the
driving
whole
him
project.
hard, that first beginning of all this, he's really
Yeah,
driving them hard. You can imagine how much they're doing, and then when they start touring and then they're coming to the US and everything, like
and the
it's such a
movies, and
whirlwind.
yeah, man, that
But
was
you
some
think
crazy
about
stuff
like all
going
these
on.
go from platinum all the way up to like 24 times platinum
Yeah.
in sales. It's just crazy. So,
I was watching an interview with George, and he said,
mhm.
this was after the Beatles, and he was saying something like, when we first started, we never knew what was going to happen down the road.
They're
We
just
had
little
no idea.
babies. You
Yeah,
think about
yeah, they
little
were.
kids, and like especially when they first got together before they were the Beatles, and they're like the Quarrymen and that, and they're just little kids.
Yeah,
It's so wild to think about how young they are,
and to think that they busted their chops in Germany,
and to
for
be
years.
all of this and it's over by the time they're like 28, 29.
Yeah, that's
It's
a whole
just
different world for
so,
them when they broke up.
yeah. But I guess so my pick on this one, and we said it's November of 63 on this one. I went with All My Loving. Um, that one's another sweet one that I just, I always like that. It's a sweet song and it has some good melody to it. And I was gonna say, like, if I picked a cover, Till There Was You is probably my favorite song on this album, but I wanted to pick stuff by them. But shout out to Meredith Wilson for that jam. I love that cover. It's a
Yeah,
good one.
yeah, yeah.
That's
They
some of
really,
Lennon's. That's some of Lennon's best guitar work, especially in the early
I
days.
love that. Yeah, for early stuff when they're just kids, like they're
That's
so
him
young when
playing
this
that.
came.
They're really fast. That's
Hmm.
almost proto metal playing right there.
Hmm. I'll talk about that too, because there's
Guys,
a couple songs that are like
yeah,
definitely proto metal. And when I was talking about it in the chat, where it's like, oh, it's Lemmy's favorite band, and if you really listen to it, like there's some pretty metal esque songs.
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
He was very proud of that guitar playing on that song. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
definitely a great one.
yeah. Now I don't know if I heard it on a show about the Beatles or on a
Hmm.
podcast that we were doing, but someone had said that their playing was more technical and harder in their early years than
Hmm.
when they were later on because they played so fast at that time, a little bit faster than any
I
other
could see
band.
that. Yeah, and like them
And
playing
their
live, and
tempos were
it's even
quick.
like a step or two steps up from what the album is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What's your next pick for the album with the Beatles?
I'm on the same page as Kate on this one, and it's gonna be All My Lovin'. I love McCartney's vocals on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and John's guitar playing is pretty great, man.
I like how he gets that like fry going when he could be so silky smooth with his voice, and then it could have that.
yeah, where he gets like a roughness, like a gruffness, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's gonna be All My Love, and I remember I think with the Beatles was probably the first Beatles album that I remember holding as a kid. That was in my household. I think that iconic cover with all 4 of them with the dark background.
Yeah,
That's
Mm-hmm.
been that a lot of bands have actually like kind of tributed it on a lot of album releases and stuff themselves. So yeah, that album cover, man, it's always been pretty iconic. Like seeing it as a little kid,
Yep.
And then the US one, that's the Meet the Beatles.
Yeah, Meet the Beatles. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
probably
the
one.
US release.
I think that's the one that I had actually was Meet
Yeah,
the Beatles.
because I have both.
Yeah.
I pulled all of them. I'm like, I had all of them, and I was trying to do back-to-backs because I'm like, I want to hear the US versus the UK, like the track listing and stuff's different on all of them too, and it's like interesting to hear how they think US audience is going to want to hear it.
Hear the bastardized.
I know.
It really
I know.
is, you know?
I'm gonna have to come back out and then again because it's garbage.
It's okay.
Yeah,
We'll
All
wait
right.
for you.
that's fine.
All right.
Charles, what's your next pick?
From With the Beatles again. Now, this was one where I debated actually breaking my no covers rule because there's a couple great covers on this.
Yep.
Including Please Mr. Postman.
Yeah.
One of the best ones, but I did not. I went with a deeper cut, and it was one that some famous music critic back then wrote had Aeolian cadences in it, and John was like, I don't even know what that is. Is it a bird or what?
Aioli, like a mayonnaise-based sauce.
Yeah. The song's called Not a Second Time.
Oh, yes.
I love that. Not a second time. I'm sorry, I got a little cold, but
No.
I love it. It's phenomenal. I think it's probably, to me, it's a standout original track, and it shows such a progression in musical maturity like that, like in one record.
Mm-hmm.
So Lennon really starts coming into his own on this record and the next one as far as a writer. And Paul kind of regresses just a hair, as we'll see on the next record. But Not a Second Time is my pick.
Well, that's a great song. In fact, I had picked that one initially, but then I went a different route. I went ahead. But I wanted to say about Please and Mr. Postman, the Beatles really did really good tributes to Motown covers and to girl band covers, but also put their own spin to it where they make it sound like the Beatles. But we all know that they were doing homage to the early Motown movement, which was great.
Yeah.
I went with George Harrison's first composition, Don't Bother Me.
Wow.
I love that track. I love the way he sings that song. It's kind of I want to say a depressive, but kind of a kiss-off song, you know? So I went with George Harrison. I think Jerry Soupy would be happy about that. His favorite Beatle being George and all. But I'm going to go with Don't Bother Me. It was so different from all the other tracks on there. So that's the one I went with the Beatles. Now let's go to their first feature film, which was A Hard Day's Night, which Kate so kindly sent me the soundtrack on vinyl.
I sent you one of these, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I don't have the regular album. I only have this one. I'm like, man, I need to get one of these represses of that, but that's the motion picture soundtrack.
I love The Hard Day's Night.
Yeah. All their movies are so fun and kooky and campy. They're just wholesome.
I was talking about their UK album release. That whole album was just great. It was one of my favorites for a while, actually, is how much I liked it. But Kate, what was your favorite track on it?
Another one that's hard. I went with Anytime at All. Lennon singing that. I like the songwriting on that one. I love the way the song progresses. That one's just a good jam. And it's funny with like one of the sweeter songs that's like a heavier riff to it.
It's a little louder than the others.
Yeah, it's more rocked out than a lot of their other like love songs are. So that one's an interesting, like different kind of sounding song, but it's the same kind of deal where it's like another love-ish friendship kind of song, but it's more heavy duty.
Yeah. I like that track.
Yeah, that's July of '64, the UK release of that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And that was quick from the turnaround.
Yeah. Well, and then it's another year where they have another one in December too in '64. So it's just wild.
And also not that long after the return from Sullivan in New York and all that. So rapid things going on in their
Just
work.
things are popping off.
I mean,
It's pretty wild.
Now that you follow their timeline, of course they were all over the place, on magazines, TV, newspapers, radio. Well, they kept on putting stuff out there. I mean, geez, this is already their third, and not even counting their singles and B sides and the movie, and all within a little over a year. That's crazy. Al, what's your pick for a Hard Day's Night album?
I gotta go based on that first chord alone, the title track. I mean, it's just such an iconic opening to like a song, and guitar players always try to like play, but you can't without play. It's a 6-string, a 12-string, and a bass all hitting, at the same time.
Yeah.
So you can't really replicate it on a single guitar. You could come close to it, but it won't sound exactly. But yeah, I'm going with the title track because it's a great song, but that iconic opening chord is just, it's iconic.
Just introduces the whole thing.
Yeah, it just, and I think they ended with that chord too, right, Charles?
Yeah, a variation of it. Just playing it.
So they open with it. Yeah, a variation with it at the end. So it's kind of cool, I always dug that. So as a guitar player myself, was always trying to like get that sound. But you can get close to it if you have a 12-string, alone. With a 6-string, you don't really get there. I mean,
you still need the 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, a little difficulties there. Charles, what's your pick off of Hard Day's Night?
Well, Hard Day's Night is my favorite early Beatles albums. That's how I kind of break them up there.
Right.
It's just phenomenal. The only album, every song's written by Lennon and McCartney only. No covers.
Is it staticky again?
Yeah,
a little bit. I think you have aliens.
You know what it is? Because somebody's trying to call me, and whenever somebody tries to call me, I guess.
Your phone's just buzzing it. Yeah, that's okay.
All right, I'm gonna come back out and come back in. Continue.
All right, that's fine.
So this one, for some reason, though, I thought Lennon was on fire on the whole album. I think this was some of the best songs he wrote in the early days, and he dominated this record as far as writing. So what do? I pick a Paul McCartney song. Things We Said Today.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a song that is criminally overlooked. It's dark. It's gritty. It's kind of out of sight of Paul's pocket a lot. This was something where he broke out of the mold. And I've always dug this song. So as great as all those known tracks are, this is a standout track on that second side, which all those songs, the closest was You Can't Do That, which was just an outtake from the film, which you can get if you get like the DVDs and all that. You can get that performance, but it was cut from the film. So I love it. I think McCartney he had it on his first tour, like in '93. He played Things We Said Today, but he hasn't played it since, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I really like the chords on that song. It's got it a little darker than what the other songs are. The other songs have that uppity up, and this kind of starts off kind of a low rhythm.
Yeah,
and that was different for them. Yeah, that was one of my favorite tracks off there too.
Yeah.
But with me, I am going to close off the album with a Lennon track. A lot of my tracks are Lennon tracks. I'll Be Back. I really like that track, and they do a really good version of it on Anthology 1, Disc 2, where they do the start and stop on Anthology on that song. But yeah, I'll Be Back is a great track. Another great vocal performance by Lennon. And Charles is right. This album was dominated more by Lennon. You had Paul's and I Love Her and Can't Buy Me Love, which were big songs for there. But also, John Lennon also I Should Have Known Better, which that was very close to making. I love that track. And others, especially on the second side, it was a little bit of a the writing was a little bit more spiteful than the first
Mhm.
two albums. A little bit more bite to the lyrics. Now we get to an album where critics said that they sounded a little tired with a lot of covers on this one after having the first album of originals, and that is Beatles for Sale, which for me I thought was a complete opposite. It was like they were getting into, yep, there it is, like they were getting into the Bob Dylan acoustic songs, not writing like Dylan, but the sound that they were trying to emulate
Mhm.
was pure Dylan. And then in turn, Dylan would
Totally.
change his sound because of the Beatles as well. So they both complemented each other very much. Of course, they were all very good friends, especially George and Bob there afterwards. Kate, what's your favorite track off of there?
This one I went with Babies in Black. Like I said, there's a couple of covers on here that I feel like I probably like even more. And then I think maybe the most popular song on the whole album is probably like 8 Days a Week, but that I'm a Loser, I really dig that. Like this one has a lot of good different songs, but when I picked one of their originals, it was like, oh, I don't know. If you asked me this whole list again next year, it'd probably all be different.
Yeah.
But I like
Yeah.
Babies in Black and I'm Wearing Blue. I don't. There's something about that struck me when I was re-listening to all of these recently. So
Another John track, but
Mhm.
also a lot of great harmonies on
Yeah,
that
and
as
this
well.
one's like a Lennon McCartney, like you said, the harmonies in this
Yeah,
one are yeah.
a really good track.
Hmm.
What are you gonna do with the Beatles for Sale?
I'm going to Lennon track. I'm a loser. So I
Hmm.
always really dug that song. Yeah, Lennon's he's in big time Dylan mode on this one.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, dude, I love his vocals on this. I mean, I love Lennon, man. Lennon's his vocals are just eh, it's like they all complement each other, man. And it's like, how do you get all these? It's like lightning in a bottle with this band, bro. How do you get like these fucking all these talented people in a band at once? You know,
Yeah,
and I mean,
Yeah.
it's very rare,
Through all of
rarefied
history,
air,
how
but
many times has something like that ever happened that you have
yeah, you know,
four random people to meet and be
I mean,
so incredible together and separately each have such an incredible solo career too. That's a hard thing to pick if we picked all our favorites off of each of their solos. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
but yeah,
yeah, that would be another one,
I'm going
another
with that one. I'm
Yeah.
solid.
a loser.
Yeah, that'd be fun to do their solo
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Of course, Paul's list will be a little bit longer because he made a
Yeah.
lot more.
Yeah.
You know. So,
Go ahead,
Charles,
Charles.
what are you gonna go with Beatles for
I'm
Sale?
following up the sister track off the track he did on the last album, a song called No Reply. Um, Dick James, the guy that ended up screwing him over on all their publishing, told him, "Hey, that's the first complete story you ever wrote in a song." I kind of agree with that notion, and also, even though he screwed him over, that wasn't cool. Love that harmonizing with John and Paul on the track, and it's another one I think gets overlooked. The thing about Beatles for Sale for me, it has my least favorite Beatles song ever, which I covered last week on BS,
Mhm.
which is a cover, Mr. Moonlight. And the production on George's, what was the Carl Perkins song at the end?
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
it
Paint
was
yourself.
What? Oh, everybody's trying to be my baby.
yes,
Yeah.
that was terrible. That was probably the
Yeah.
worst production George ever Martin did. It shows he was human at one point. That's okay though.
Yeah.
So I'm a little mixed bag on the album as a whole. I don't dislike it. It's good, but it is a little step down from the previous. But it was understandable. They were tired. It wasn't make believe. It was actual fatigue at this point. So
Yeah, and they weren't going in there with gimmicks and and a hot producer that will do everything for you. Just come in and sing your parts. This was, going from the ground up again, and then getting ready for another tour, and then later we'll find out that they were going to be making another movie in less than a year. That's
Yeah.
that's some crazy shit, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some compassion fatigue's gonna happen real quick.
Yeah, and they were still turning stuff out. There was still even
Still
their
put out an album and
and
yeah.
the singles during this time too. They were fantastic as well. We're gonna have our first match of the night. I am going to agree with Charles with No Reply. I love that track. I mean, I know that it was you. I looked up to see your face. Again, you know, when everyone else was singing about love, the Beatles were doing the complete opposite. These were breaking down of relationships that might have even been happening to them at this point when they were jet setting around the world, but their personal lives must have suffered at this time. You know. But I went with No Reply.
Yeah.
I almost put in another Lennon track that was kind of also um, a depressing one. I don't want to spoil the party, which I thought was fantastic. I don't
Mhm.
want to spoil the party, so I'll go. So we match right there with No Reply. So now we're moving on to a little. The Beatles are moving forward quick. They make another movie in the beginning of
Mhm.
'65. This is going to be the album Help. And this has all originals except for the one. One being Dissy Mizzy Lizzy, which ends the album. So, Kate, which way are you going to go on here?
This one, probably the first acoustic song a lot of people learn when they're learning guitar. I went with You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. I think when you see people playing acoustic, that you end up seeing people play that a lot too, which is funny. But it's just one of those songs that and Norwegian Wood, those are the two Beatles songs I feel like you hear people play acoustic a lot. But this one, like you were saying, Andy, you get these like sadder kind of self-reflective songs happening, and now we know so much of their history. I feel like a lot of songs you can reflect back on and realize like what's going on with them and what time, like what period of time they're in their lives.
I got that one as well.
Yeah, did I send you that one? I got one of those too. I don't know if I gave you that one.
No,
That I have this
I've
one
had
is
this
just a
for a while.
repress. I have this crazy Bolivian one that I got that was in a box of garbage records, and it's like, I don't know, probably like a $200 album that was in the
Wow.
trash. Literally, someone threw these in the trash, and someone picked it out of the trash and gave it to me. And it was all like Spanish and flamenco records, and then there's this copy of Help in there that's from Bolivia, and all the titles are in Spanish.
That's awesome.
Like, that's cool. I find weird stuff, man. Some people give me stuff that I'm like, what the heck? But that's the soundtrack. So I have that too. The mix up's a little different on there. The lineup's a little different because that goes with the film. But yeah, but it's interesting how they switch those two, because that's another thing. Like Hard Day's Night switched up on the soundtrack, and that switched up on the soundtrack, and then there's a couple songs missing off that. But that's like Stop Making Sense when they press that there's a difference between the actual album and the soundtrack. So yeah. But yeah, I love that You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. That, yeah, I think there's a point in their time where you see that they're kind of growing up now, and it's not like cute love songs. And that's even the last album you see it too. In Hard Day's Night, I feel like. And Beatles for Sale, yeah. I mean, you see them growing up. You guys know what I mean. Where you're like reflecting on their history and what we know about their relationships, and like how the press has covered different drama in their lives, and then you can hear it now that you can think about it, or as you grow up too, things mean different stuff to you. But
yeah, exactly. That was one of my favorite songs when I first heard this album.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
I just love the way he sings it too, with that like sharp stop and start.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. You guys know. You've all listened to it. You know what I'm talking about. But there's just
that voice.
Lennon that when you feel that like
voice kind of thing,
that like guttural pain almost of like, it comes across in the song. You definitely, you can feel the tension that he's feeling.
I had always grouped this together with "We Can Work It Out."
Yeah.
I think on that 20 greatest hits, though the one I think they're back to back.
I like that one. It's cool because it all goes in chronological order, the releases. So that one's really neat for a compilation to go in time order. I thought was really cool how they set that one up.
And the thing is that I love compilations that go in order because you see the band.
Yeah. When you hear, that's a good way to really concisely hear the change in how their playing was and their style and how varied it is over time and how. I mean, that's such a cool comp. I really dig that one a lot. Yeah.
Al, what are you gonna go with the album Help?
Well, I'm going with again. When I was a little kid, this song always intrigued me and always hit me hard. Like I always just loved the song, and it's actually the title track, Help. The harmonies, the playing, seeing the promo video as like a kid. You know, the promotion, because the Beatles were making videos way back in the day before there was even a thought of MTV or any that stuff, you know. So that was kind of cool, you know. And and I remember seeing that song, and I always thought they looked so cool in the video, you know. And I don't know.
Well, that's like airplane signaling. That's what the thing says, help. That's why they're dressed like this.
Yeah.
And that's why they're doing those hand signals.
So that's the airplane signals for help, right?
They're spelling it out. Yeah. And that's what the goofy costumes are about. That's like a UK costume.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, I know you guys. I'm probably picking like kind of by the numbers, like, you know, the popular Beatle tracks, but like again, I just went with I looked at the track list and just whatever hit me first. You guys are
right.
Admittedly, you guys are a lot deeper into the Beatles than I am. I love the Beatles, but I'm not like so deep into it like you guys are. You guys know like every detail of like the deep tracks and all that stuff. And I'll admit, like I'm not the expert in that way, but you know, that's not to say that I'm not a fan. I love them, and I agree. I think they're the greatest band of all time, and you know, you can't deny, you know, what they contributed. And I mean, every band pretty much has owes them, you know, debt of gratitude. So you know, So, go ahead, Charles.
Well, the interesting thing about your pick is Lennon always hated that recording, and he wanted it to be moody. And I don't know, I like it the way it is, to tell you the truth. But he wanted it moody, and down the road, people would cover it and slow it down and make it probably more in the vein he wanted. But for whatever reason, I think it was United Artists wanted a more upbeat song for the film. So, but it's an interesting dichotomy to have this deep, depressing song with happy-go-lucky music.
Right. Have you ever heard that like major to minor that people cover it and then you hear it dark and spooky kind of sounding how he allegedly wanted it to sound?
Yeah,
those are interesting. If you're ever bored, those major to minor covers are really cool. It just messes with your head because you're so used to hearing it the one way. But I had to interject with Al. This is like the one time I could like outfax you on anything. So I think you're good.
And I'm not even gonna try, man.
Like Al's the expert and resource of an incredible amount of knowledge about every other band. So I'm like, oh, I only got one band up on Al.
And
I've got two. Go, man. I've only got two. This and Oasis, so I can only beat them on those.
There you go. Right. There you go. But I bet he's nipping at your heels on Oasis too, and he's probably going to come back. If we did this again in a year, he'll be beating us on Beatles stuff too.
Nah, you know, I mean, I consider myself kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, the band you probably never beat me on will be the Rush. You know, probably
Rush. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't even attempt.
Even probably, I mean, for me, like my top three bands were Rush, Van Halen, and Sabbath. So I mean, probably those three bands I probably have like the most knowledge on, and then Zeppelin after that. And I mean, I love the Beatles, man. Don't get me wrong, but there's people are so deep.
Yeah, there's like a weird like there's a weird competition thing of like knowing the most and having the most weird stuff and every little factoid about them and about their managers and this and like tour dates and like the Get Back doc, they had the timeline wrong because the calendar they kept showing is wrong. And that's like, I have a couple friends that are like that deep into Beatles, and I'm like, all right, well, like I still enjoyed it and I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that's what I am. I just love their music.
You think Kiss nerds are bad now?
Yeah.
Kiss nerds are nothing.
Kiss nerds are like even heavier.
I don't know.
Say that about fanatics of like really every band, you know. I mean, like, I mean, there's Rush fans that scare me, you know what I mean? So it's like,
well, and just like a lot of like guy stuff, because like albums and records and a lot of this isn't like chick stuff, but guy stuff. There's always that like pissing contest of like, oh well, did you know so and so, and they had this guitar and they played this style and they used these strings and da da da, and I'm like, man, the song just sounds good. I don't care what they were doing. Like, we don't have to get that crazy into it.
There's people that get mathematical into that shit, you know. It's
well, and that was like, oh, this arpeggio, and then he dropped this, and da da da. Is like, okay, cool, man.
Yeah, that's stuff that gets way over me.
Yeah, I could see if you were like really like a music teacher or somebody who like really needs to know all this stuff. If you were teaching kids or somebody else how to play it and that,
and you can give those kind of pointers.
It's over my head. I mean, Beatles, like, all right, I'm cool.
The Beatles is one of the most studied bands of any band.
Oh yeah, I mean, of all time.
There's just people that just really like with a microscope just go over every little detail of things, you know. And that's cool.
Every single note.
You know. But for me, I mean, I enjoy the music, and you know, I like learning about like facts here and there. But it's not like I open a book up and study like, holy shit, you know, I gotta know what progression this was and that. You know, it's I'm not that deep into it.
Well, on this track he plays a Rickenbacker, and on this track he plays a da-da-da, like. Yeah.
Go ahead, Charles.
Sorry, Charles, I interrupted you. I had to put that in there. I'm like, this is where I have one up on Al.
No, I was giving Al an out there because I guess
I'm like, you know so much shit about so much other stuff. Like, I don't want you to ever think that like anybody would question.
You can't go wrong with any of these songs. There's maybe one or two that if somebody picked, I'd be like, what? You know, but not.
Don't pick Mr. Moonlight or Dizzy Miss Lizzie.
Yeah, no, there's one down the road.
And I think Mark or Jerry hates those too.
If anybody picks one of the ones down the road, I'll be shocked. But anyway, I went with one that I think was a throwback, and it was the last time they ever sounded like the original Beatles. It's my favorite portion of the film. It's always my go-to whenever I do listen to this record. Is you're going to lose that girl. It's like the most early Beatles sounding of those songs. They were already beginning this transition on this record to what they would do in my favorite Beatles period, which is that middle period leading into maybe even Sgt. Pepper's. I might throw that one in that middle period. You see the preview with some of the tracks on this album, but this one was like, we're not quite ready yet. We still got that lovey-dovey, ha-ha, you know, we're the mop head guys and all that.
They're still babies.
Yes, and it was a charming song, well sung, great 3-part harmonies, and dig that song a lot. Or even if it's simple, I love it anyway.
Yeah, it's a really good track, and I like the track on the movie. It's a real smoky kind of atmosphere, and they're like kind of like in a rehearsal kind of room. Looks tight.
Ringo gets the drums cut away from him and he falls down the floor and
Hey, I got something to say about that. Can we bring back the conversation pit in a house? Because I legit want one. Next house I buy, I think we need to build one. Nobody does that anymore, but you know what I'm talking about? The sunken living room, the conversation pit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like they have that in a couple of their movies because that was a big thing back then. But I'm like, man, I really want one. That'd be so cool.
Yeah. With that sunken living room kind of
thing. Yeah, the couch all the way around and like a big coffee table, like sitting
Yeah.
smoking area. They
Yeah,
do it
that was
in
a
like
really
Mad
cool.
Men and stuff like that. You'll see it.
Yeah, that was the really cool stuff. And
Yeah,
also,
like we need to bring that back.
Also on a lot of early James Bond movies.
Yep,
As well,
that was a
got
big
that
thing in
kind
the
of furniture.
60s because you wouldn't have a TV in the living room. You could have your conversation pit.
Yeah, and tea and cake and all that.
Yeah.
Well, now everybody just comes over and watches TV, and that's it. You know.
Then we don't talk to each other.
No.
Yeah.
But I'm going
What's
to go
your
with
pick?
I'm going to go with an acoustic song. I was going to go with Yesterday, but that was going to be too obvious, and it kind of repeats the same um um lyrics twice. But of course, I loved it when I was a kid. But I'm going to go with "I've Just Seen a Face" by Paul.
Yeah.
I think he performed it. Also, they did it in "Wings Over America," the quadruple live album. I think it's on there, and he also did it on Unplugged. "I've Just Seen a Face." It's a beautiful song, and I love the guitar on there. The way it just goes down the scale. I guess that's what it is, right? The scale, guys. Guitar player.
On an Epiphone. Oops.
Really?
Beatles nerd.
Oh shit! Gonna name drop like that.
He did it live when I seen him. Which was cool.
I love. So a couple of my buddies are big music nerds, and they all play and stuff. And hanging in the basement, there's one of those exact replica Epiphones, and somebody stuck a card in it that just says "fuck you, fanboy." I'm like, it's just such a funny thing, and then no one ever moved it. They never played it again because it was just too perfect.
It just stayed that way.
So funny.
I'm gonna go with "I've Just Seen a Face." I just love it, and you can kind of see that story. You just saw a face, and you'll think, and I'll dream of her tonight. You're never gonna see that person again, but I'll dream of her tonight. La, 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 la. Now we get into a very interesting period, a very introspective, very inventive time of invention of writing, of lifestyle, of the instruments that they're going to be using, and they just pretty much blow everybody else away. Not that they already had it, but now when other bands were starting to catch up with them, the Beatles just went off in a whole different world, a whole different area. So let's get started. Rubber Soul, December of '65 was when that was released. December '65, Rubber Soul. Kate, what is your pick off of that album?
So this is the turn when you start seeing it become more psych, and they're turning into a bunch of long hairs. And this is more getting into the Beatles that I'm really into and my go-to stuff, which this is funny because I just seen a face in Norwegian Wood and a couple things that are on Help are on this, which is weird. But
the US version,
yeah, the US release. So I have a copy of it. This is the US release, so the track listing's a little different, but that does have that. Like I've just seen a face in Norwegian Wood are on this too.
Well, Norwegian Wood was already on Rubber Soul.
Yeah. But that I'm saying like Help had a couple of the same tracks on it. They just split it up weird. How from the UK versus the US releases.
Yep.
Right. Because the US releases, it's both like how you were talking about. I've just seen a faces on both of those, which is just weird how they split it. But my pick on this one, I went with Nowhere Man. I like that. That's getting into the weirder stuff. That's getting into when you hear it more in like Yellow Submarine when you listen to the song track and that. I love Michelle too, but to go into more psych stuff, I went with Nowhere Man. That was kind of a tough call for me because Michelle's really good, and you get to hear them how a lot of them all knew other languages. So there's French and Michelle, but on like Past Masters, they're singing in German on a bunch of stuff, and like how you were saying, like a lot of their starting movement is in Germany. So it's interesting to know that they all know different languages and that. But I love Nowhere Man. I love how in the film in Yellow Submarine, that's like Jeremy's song, how they introduce him. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's a great track.
Mhm.
That whole album was just. I think I was so
Yeah.
immersed that it was my favorite
I
for a
just,
while.
yeah, I really dig this. How I was saying, it just starts getting into their like hippie phase, and they're all getting to be long hairs, and
Pot smokers.
yeah, they probably found psychedelic drugs at this time, and you can really tell where the turn is.
Yeah, yeah. You can really tell in a few more months when they start doing acid and
Yeah, when it
really
gets,
start to play
yeah,
around with the
yeah,
music.
yeah. Well, and
Yeah,
especially when it's that like change into the like multi-tracking and things, and then they
yeah,
start really experimenting with
yeah.
different like ways to do music, because that stuff wasn't like that
Yeah.
before, you know. And
It's like when they stopped touring, it wasn't the stop of the band,
mhm,
it was the
mhm.
beginning
Well, and
of
that's really
them
getting
really just
into where they could go with their own music and not
yeah.
touring and having more time in the studio instead of cranking out extra
Yeah.
albums. And then, you know, that's no covers, and they're getting really experimental and more into their own music, and how you can play instruments and learning different things is really interesting.
Mhm. Yeah, it
Mhm,
is. So
mhm.
you went with Nowhere Man? Yeah, that's a great track.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
that
might be
is.
like a throwaway goofy song to some people, but some of their like weirder goofy songs are the ones that I really dig, that I get into more.
What's your pick for Rubber Soul?
Well, again, when I was younger, this was like one of the early Beatles albums I had in my possession, Rubber Soul and Revolver. So it kind of became like my favorite period of the Beatles as well. Like this period of Rubber Soul going into Revolver, where they're really starting to experiment, like Kate said, and stuff like that. Ultimately, I went with In My Life. Um, I mean, I just that's such an iconic song. I love the
So
way
good.
they when they did the piano solo, they slowed the tape down, did the piano solo, then they put the tape back up to normal speed, and the piano is sounds like a harpsichord, almost like, you know, it's a it's double the speed obviously, and at a higher pitch. um Check out the Smithereens album, 11, a song called Blue Period. They kind of do an homage to that same exact thing, within their own song, because they were like really influenced by the Beatles. They even did a Beatles covers album, which is really good. They covered a lot of the early Beatles stuff, which Pat Denizio actually said was pretty hard to sing and replicate that early stuff, the harmonizing and all that stuff, the way they sang on those early albums. But yeah, going back to In My Life, I mean, I love that song. The lyrics are, they just, I don't know, man, they just speak to you. You know, it's
Yeah.
spoke to me actually. So yeah, that's the one I got to pick. I mean, it's hard. It's getting into a period now where I'm really, really like loving the albums and stuff. So it, like, just looking at the track list and kind of like not overthinking it, it's getting tough to even do that, you know, especially with Rubber Soul, because this is like one of the early albums I had in my collection too, and one of my favorites. So I went with that one, In My Life. I could have went with a number of different tracks, but that's the one I ultimately went with. It's like the first one I saw. It's like I got to pick that one.
Yeah, that track In My Life. I danced with my mom with that
Your wedding.
at my wedding.
That's
That
beautiful.
was the song that I picked.
Yeah.
I remember I was looking for songs that had the word mama in it, and because I was trying to find something. I was like, should no, I can't pick that Genesis song. I'll freak people out. I gotta find something else. So that's what popped out to me. But but great song.
Yeah.
And I think that was George Martin playing the piano on that part. Is that right,
Yes.
Charles?
Yeah,
Right.
it was. Yeah, he
And
did a
Before
then
the
lot of
times of Billy Preston.
he did a lot of the early piano work.
yeah,
They weren't quite up to speed till probably
but
about
they
Sgt.
sped up the
Pepper,
tape on
maybe.
that. Hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, he played it phenomenal. He was like the fifth Beatle, really.
He
I mean,
really,
always when everybody says who's the fifth Beatle, I think it was Martin.
yeah, he really was.
Yeah.
It was
But
so
he was like, he had so many roles, because he took over the like dad role and like the manager role almost too.
yeah.
I mean, just could you imagine thinking of anything not falling into place the way it did, where like Epstein dies young and then they find George Martin, and if it wasn't him, think of how different it probably would not be the same at all. Like there's nothing, I don't know. I can't talk anymore. Like my brain is fried for the day. But you guys get what I mean, that like there's just like how Al said, it's just that lightning in a bottle, like just something they had
all these talents that are in the studio together, like just
so many pieces coming together that I don't know.
Just like they used it's like that's why you never get albums nowadays that sound like albums like this anymore, because everything's just like you can just punch up on a computer and throw
you can auto tune something. You can
this was like using your limited tracks, your limited technology, but experimenting with it, like using the studio was another instrument.
Well, thinking outside the box of just like, we're not limited to this, we can do so many other things, and that's all the different instruments.
Let's put 2 tape machines together.
The multi-tracking and that, like
all that shit.
It's just so it's kismet or whatever. I don't know what the hell happened. Like where we do those conversations where I'm like so and so, like Bowie's an alien and freaking like Hendrix is from outer space. Like these guys like all fell to earth together at the same time is just such a wild thing. I don't know. It just still blows my mind. As much as I gush about the Beatles, I mean, it's just such a thing. It's wild. I don't know.
And if you remember seeing the Beatles old clips while they were recording, it was them 4, George Martin up in the booth with Jeff and Rick. That was it.
That's some of my favorite stuff is when they're sitting in the studio with George Martin and they're just playing and they're sitting there listening, and that's like in that Get Back doc and seeing them where you're seeing the live video of it. I'm like, oh man, this is just so awesome.
Yeah, I want to watch that documentary again. I couldn't get enough of
I'm ready to watch it again. After talking about all this stuff, like I was talking to my friend the other night on the phone and we were talking about it, and I was like, I need to sit down and watch them all again. I was glued to the TV like like crazy watching
to see them work, and even though they weren't even the best relationships and for friendships, they put the music first.
When you see it where they're vibing together and you can see all the bullshit like melts away from them, all the drama, all the shit when they're in that same wavelength, and I'm like, oh man, it's so many feels. It's such an emotional roller coaster to watch that. But I'll get into it when we talk about Revolver, but just talking about the Get Back documentary, and you see all these things that are going to end up on Abbey Road, and then they let It Be out, but it's like getting all those little clips and you see them noodling and working it out, and they're like, oh man, awesome. It's so cool. But go ahead.
Charles, what's your pick on Rubber Soul?
Rubber Soul is my favorite Beatles album. I don't think it'll ever be eclipsed. At times it wasn't always, but it has been so long now that I just call it what it is. And I'm with Al. It's in my life. This was written by a young man who wrote a song that grows with you as time goes on.
Yeah.
The meaning changes as you experience life. It when you first hear it, you could be at a different station of your life versus 10 years later, you could be at another station of your life.
Wow.
This is the mark of a great song. Beyond the level. That's why Lennon is my favorite of the Beatles and my favorite songwriter in the Beatles. And what a song. It's my second favorite Beatles song of all time. But usually that can flip-flop with my number 1. I mean, but it's typically at my number 2 favorite song by them. It is such a great song that, like I said, it takes on new meanings. It grows with you as your life goes on. So great song.
And you're so right about that, Charles. There's not that many songs that grows with you, that goes with the changes that you go through in life, and that song is still there, and it pretty much talks about every step of the way. It's crazy how that song is.
It stays so relevant, but the emotion changes, like the feeling changes.
Yeah, because
I tried to get this song for like how you pick a class song when you're a senior. This is the song that I proposed, and there were like 4 other songs, and this had a lot of votes, and then some dumb pop bullshit won.
So what song won? I'm very curious.
I'm trying to. I like blocked it out because it was such a ridiculous compared to picking this and then picking some dumb song. But I'll have to get back to you. I can't think of what it was, but it was like an insult that the other song won because it's just meaningless, and this song is so meaningful on so many levels. How you were saying, how Charles and Al both said, it's just like song that changes with you, and every time you listen to it, something else is relatable. I don't know, it's just interesting. There's a lot of songs that are like that, but especially one that could stick with you throughout your life.
Ours was stupid. It didn't even go with a theme of school or anything.
What was that Vitamin C song?
Vitamin C.
Was it literally called Graduation? Like a dumbass pop song. That's what it was. That was my class song instead of it being In My Life.
I've never even heard of that.
I think it's legit called Graduation, and it's like a one-hit wonder from the early 90s. I graduated in 2005, so it's not even like it was a song that was relevant
in that year.
Year.
I gotta look at that. Graduation.
I'll send it. I'm 80% sure that's the song that won, and it's just a stupid girl pop song.
I've never even heard of Vitamin C, and
I'm pretty sure that popped into my mind, so I gotta go with that. But to beat out In My Life, man, it was like I want to burn the school to the ground.
Better than Bob.
What'd you say?
Better than Bob.
Yeah, I'm sure that year.
Those
guys are actually really good now. Have you listened to them? Yeah.
Mine was
they grew up.
Boys to Men. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday.
I don't remember mine.
That's not bad.
Yeah, ours was Brian. Ours was Brian Adams. Everything I do for you. Why? I have no idea.
That's a weird graduation song.
That doesn't match anything.
That's not a graduation song.
No, it's not.
That's weird.
You don't remember yourself?
That's weird to pick like a weird love
song.
Ours
was like Red Barchetta, something like that.
No, I don't remember mine actually, man. It's weird.
Red Barchetta.
It was New Jersey. You graduated in New Jersey, right?
Yeah, 1990.
It was like a Billy Joel song or
90.
something.
Oh yeah, that's Color Me Bad days.
Yeah.
Well, I graduated in 1990, so I'm trying to think what was big in like 89, 90.
Our class in 90 did I Remember You by Skid Row, which was like the only kind of metal-y thing they ever had.
That's not bad, though. That's kind of makes sense for a graduation song. Yeah.
At least it had something to it.
And a Jersey band.
Yeah, it wasn't like something poppy, whoopy. The Boys to Men thing was all right, I guess.
I don't like Boys to Men. Oh, yeah. You went to go see them like a month ago. How were they?
They were great, man.
I bet they're still awesome.
It's down to a 3. It's not. It's just 3 of them now.
Yeah,
it's not 4 anymore. But they were really good, man. And actually during the show, they came out and like they played instruments too. Like they were telling the story about how as they were progressing, they wanted to like learn instruments and stuff like that. So like one of them, played guitar. One of them came out played bass. A couple of songs, and they were pretty good, and they were really good. Their voices were really. I mean, they were one of the R&B groups. Yeah, when I got out of high school, they were big with the 91. I think it was Cooley High Harmony with the first album. And I remember, man, that album was huge, man.
Yeah.
And
then that Boyz II Men 2 was also huge too.
Yeah. So
I saw them at the Kennedy Honors like last month. They sounded phenomenal. And I think they performed in honor of Lionel Richie. So they did a couple of Lionel Richie and Commodore tracks. They sounded
cool.
pretty good.
Yeah. I saw him. He opened for God, what did we see him with? The Jimmy Buffett of all people. And we weren't expecting anything. And damn if Lionel Richie does not throw down an amazing show. It was incredible. I was just so astounded by how good his show was.
Yeah, I saw. My wife and I went to go see Lionel Richie. I dragged her because she really didn't want to go because I'm a big Lionel Richie fan. But what had irritated me was that when they do medleys, I hate the medleys when I want to hear the whole
Yeah,
song,
the whole
and they
song
split
played
the verses
through.
that I want to hear, and
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he didn't care that I booed, but I get I
Finish the
didn't.
damn song.
I want to hear the second verse. That's my favorite part. No, but to get back to Rubber Soul.
Yeah, you were. We got to do Andy's pick.
Yeah, Nowhere Man. Nowhere Man has been one of my favorite songs by them for a very long time.
We had a double on that one.
Double on this one. On a song that I'm sorry, on an album that you really could have gone so many different ways.
This one's kind of a mishmash of an album, really.
Yeah. It's a really good one. But now we get to what a lot of people say is one of their best albums. When some might say it might be one of the best albums in rock. Talking about Beatles' Revolver. Revolver had so many different avenues and genres that they would touch on. So many different sounds. It's amazing what they squeezed into what I think it's like 30 minutes, if that. And we're
this
just
one's
talking
a
about
quickie. This one's a fast album.
Yeah, it's a fast album, but there's so much going on. Kate, what's going to be your pick on this one?
This one's August of '66. This one was a really hard one. Like I said, this is getting more into like psych and the weirder stuff. They're more experimental stuff, and like this one has Yellow Submarine on it, so you can see where it's gonna go, where they're gonna lead to with getting weird. I went with Here, There, and Everywhere, and that was my pick today. And like I said, if you ask me in another 6 months, it might even be different, because there's like Tomorrow Never Knows is phenomenal, For No One, and Your Bird Can Sing. She Said, that one is like, Eleanor Rigby obviously is ridiculous. Like there's so many. That one's a heavy duty album of like killer tracks, and especially stuff that I really like when it's getting into my like go-to, like I'm going to listen to the Beatles, and there's like 4 or 5 albums that I've listened to so many times you'd like have to send away to NASA to calculate it. So This one's a hard one for me to pick, but I went with Here, There, and Everywhere. That one.
That's a good track.
There's so many good tracks on this one. This one was really hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Al, what are you going to go on for with a Revolver?
Again, love this album a lot, man. This was
hard.
Tough to kind of just go with the fast, like don't think about it, pick
one off the cuff.
Right off the cuff. But I went with ultimately with the last track, Tomorrow Never Knows. I mean, come on, man. It's
phenomenal.
You know, I mean, this album is like really, they're like really experimenting now, and not with just the studio, but with their minds and shit like that. You know what I mean? So
this is the turn we said where they've discovered
LSD
psychedelic,
and all sorts of good stuff, man.
Balls, pretty much.
And it's really opening up their minds. You know, I mean, it's just, you know, they say that sometimes they say, you know, drugs don't help your creativity. Yeah, sometimes it does.
Yeah.
Sometimes drugs are good.
Look at all those 70s Aerosmith albums. You know what I mean?
Look at
I think like the inhibition, not having the inhibition and not having like that sensor, you don't have that filter, like a little bit of Liquid Courage kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's, I think, what was going on too, that it's like they're at a point they're famous enough they could get away with whatever the hell they wanted too, I think. And then to have that change in your mind of being on a mind altering substance, and they're there. They got there.
yeah, the instrumentation
Yeah.
alone, the instrumentation alone on this song is incredible. Like
And
with the droning of the sitars and
I feel like
and
they started making music to listen to on drugs too.
yeah,
Is kind of
yeah,
where
you
it's
know,
going. Because if you
yeah,
listen, I always tell people who aren't super into the Beatles, I'm like, put on a kick-ass set of headphones and sit down and listen when it's not mono and you're listening to where it turns where they're doing a lot of stereo stuff and the multi-tracking and that. And I'm like, put on a damn good set of headphones. You could smoke or take some mind-indulging substances, might help a little even, but listen to them like that. And when you hear that that's music that they were making for people that were in that headspace, and like,
in the time frame, in that time period, you know, it's just crazy.
Yeah. And
Go ahead, Charles.
Ringo on Tomorrow Never Knows it just goes nuts.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
goes nuts. And he
Yeah.
starts to go nuts at about this time period. He's really
He's
they're
putting it
really
out there
letting him
more.
go. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's just not keeping time anymore. The dude making the drums one of the lead instruments in the next few albums.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing. When drummers weren't supposed to be seen or heard, they're just supposed to keep the time. Not Ringo. He was teaching other drummers that will come out in the late '60s. You've got a voice, use it, and they did. And with so many other drummers that came out after this time, like Ginger Baker and Bonham and stuff like that, where the drums
You
were.
must get picked up where it's like that switch from like how jazz will always have like drum solos and different stuff, and like these bands, they didn't really do that. That's more like a jazz thing. So I feel like there's that transition into, we're going to have this solo, we're going to have that solo, and you can hear this instrument more, and that's starting to kick over into that space of like they did more blues stuff, they did more jazzy stuff, and had different little pepperings of that kind of thing going on, I felt like. And that's when this is starting to change too.
Yeah.
Like how you said, they're letting him go and he's like opening up more.
And it's crazy because we'll get to their psychedelic period, but when it just seemed like the psychedelic period for the Beatles just came natural to them. It's like every different type of rock music that they tried,
they could just pick up any genre and run with it.
It's like they weren't even trying to do anything different, or like it didn't suit them. It was just natural, and it's
they were never like a fish out of water kind of thing happening where you can hear other bands try to experiment and it just isn't right.
And it just fits them perfect with everything that they tried. Charles, Revolver for you, which track?
But you guys have touched on great tracks already. I went with the opener, Taxman.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney, best guitarist in the band. Exhibit A. Another big thing we're over, maybe we forgot to mention, at this point, EMI, who owned Abbey Road, gave the Beatles unlimited studio time for free. They had this benefit. It was mega. Even though
they know it's going to make them a fortune.
Right. It was the cash cow, so keep on doing it.
That's where, like, how I was saying earlier, I'm like, they have, like, carte blanche by this time because they're so famous. Yeah. No matter what they did, like, they're going to make millions of dollars and sell millions and millions of records no matter what
they were probably England's biggest export, I think, economics wise at that point. It's not just a joke, it was true. And they were a national, beyond treasure. I mean, they actually brought in the most money for England at that time. It was kind of downtime, I believe, economically in the UK anyway. And so Tomorrow Never Knows sprung because of this unlimited studio time, and do whatever you like. Now, the Beatles grew to not be fond of Abbey Road, which is funny, interesting, as they're so associated with it, but they love to get to other studios and record there. But you know, that goes beyond saying. It's a big factor in their success too, is the fact they were given carte blanche, take as much time as you want, lads, no problem, and make what you need to make. But Taxman is just, I think at this point, I did like couple of them George songs on Rubber Soul, but I think this is the best song he had come up with at
Hmm.
this period. And being I was a little light on George on this listing, I thought I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna throw it to him because I love Revolver. Period. So
Yeah.
there is a song or two on it I'm not as wild about, and that's why I prefer Rubber Soul over Revolver. But
Which songs
Revolver,
are those?
I want to tell you, and because I hate that piano in it, that out of key piano. I don't understand that,
Yeah.
and I find Dr. Robert a little,
That one's a weirder.
yeah, a little like
Mm-hmm.
they could have come up with maybe a better track than that. But it's not horrible. I don't
No, it's
like
not.
despise it, but it's just yeah. If I'm gonna skip it, it'd be one of those two usually.
Well,
Where Rubber Soul or is like beginning to end. So
interesting. My track that I'm gonna pick on here is has so many different stories to this track. First of all, it was the number one song for them, and it's such an odd song to be number one because it's so weird and it's so strange and it's so scary and the arrangement is so different. I'm talking about Eleanor Rigby. If you really listen to the orchestration and it's a spooky lyrics. I found my dog Ellie, which she's named after Eleanor Rigby because I found her in the cemetery. That's why we named her Eleanor Rigby. So, but we call her Ellie for short. But on I believe it's on the anthology when they just do the instrumental track to Eleanor Rigby. It's amazing. The I guess was it George Martin or Paul McCartney that wrote the music for it? Does anybody know?
I mean, Paul came up with the
A
chord.
lot of them are the amalgam, but who gets credited? I could look
Yeah.
it up really quick.
I think McCartney wrote the basics of the song, and then Martin, of course, because none of the Beatles could read or write music,
That's
Right.
the funniest thing about all this too.
which is another
No
incredible.
one knew how to
aspect.
read or write it.
Yeah,
Not
because
very
pretty
trained.
much, like they would tell George Martin, "This is what I have in my head. This is the sound that I want. Can you make it?" You know.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
George Martin wasn't. Yeah, he was actually musically trained in school, which I think was a commonplace with producers, especially in England back then,
Mhm.
that they had to have this background, and he could put that. It's like the Family Way, a soundtrack McCartney did for the film The Family Way. It was him and George Martin, and I think it was similar arrangement where McCartney came up with the melodies and all these things, and then Martin transcribed them, maybe helped out a little bit here and there.
Right.
I believe.
It says
That's how it went.
primarily written by Paul McCartney and credited to Lennon McCartney. Issued as a double A-side single, this and Yellow Submarine.
Wow, that was the double single.
Yeah, my
Number
mom
one.
talks about this all the time because when it hit, they were like part of a neighborhood pool club, one of those kind of things that it was like the pool in the neighborhood, and she's like they played Yellow Submarine over and over and over. It sticks out in her mind. She's like,
Yeah.
it's such a weird set of singles that you have like such a happy light one of their goofier songs,
Yeah.
and then Eleanor Rigby on the
It's such a
same
moody
single.
track. Yeah.
And a double A-side single
Yeah.
is kind of weird too, but yeah, but they said it's credited to him, and then on the credit it's Lennon McCartney.
Yeah.
But it says
That
the
would-
quartet arrangement, string quartet arrangement by George Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would write that music for them. But yeah,
Yeah.
Eleanor Rigby, I think it's a beautiful song, and it's
Yeah.
also so haunting, and talks about loneliness, pretty much. It's
That
crazy.
isolative feeling in that
Yeah,
song.
and
Yeah.
and it was in '66, and when the monkeys were, last train to Clarksville, and hey, we're the monkeys, and we're coming in with with Eleanor Rigby and Taxman, and you know Tomorrow Never Knows, and all these crazy, serious stuff coming from them. Now we move on to one of another great album by them, it's going to be one great album after another at this point. Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Right now on Tubi, they've got 50 years ago today, which is a documentary about the making of Sergeant Pepper's. So I'm in the middle of watching that,
Ooh, I
and that
need
is
to
quite
check
cool
that out.
right now. Yeah, it's on Tubi for free. So what's your favorite track on this album?
This one's my hardest one because it's my favorite album where I have like a million different copies and
Yeah.
versions of it. And this is like my whole big where I can really isolate getting into vinyl, especially like finding this in my mom's collection and seeing
Oh, wow.
all the colors, the cover art, like their costumes, and then this is another thing where you see it leading into Yellow Submarine and like a huge inspiration for Hendrix and how Hendrix dressed and his whole thing, which is like there's so many things about this, but this one's such a hard one to pick one song because I was back and forth Within You, Without You, where it's like obviously it's mostly instrumental, but it's such an amazing sounding song and message to me. And this is like getting into the like Maharishi stuff and their trips to India and that whole thing. But that it was a tough call. But I finally ended up settling. I went with A Day in the Life. The changes that song goes through and that like crescendo building. Yeah, I don't know. I'm having issues verbalizing what I want to say about it, but that's just such a incredible song and especially a killer track to end this where you're coming into having like the where they do the reprise of Sergeant Pepper in that, but then they end it with this. I think is such a like daring song to end it on, and the way it ends too, to just have the album end with this like crack.
With that note.
Yeah, yeah,
it's
that's
great.
it. Yeah, I don't know.
And seemingly goes on forever, you know.
Oh man, and there's just so many
kind of like
feelings
the
that you
way
have
that-
listening to that song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And also you can think of maybe the first Kiss album ending that same way too. You know the boom,
That burn, that like slow burn end.
Yeah,
It's such a
boom,
cool
which I
way
Yeah,
to
they-
like.
Yeah, they keep pitching the tape down.
Yeah,
slowing it
it's
down.
cool that it just like burns and ends in that like slow burn.
You know, I will send it to y'all, but Neil Young does a cover of this track. That excuse me, with he does A Day in the Life, and I think it was live at Glastonbury. And, man,
Glastonbury.
it's crazy.
There's that's the other
way
thing
that
we
he
could
ends
say
it
is
with his
just like
guitar.
people covering Beatles songs and how many phenomenal covers other people and other big
Come up with.
musicians
Yeah.
too. How
Oh,
many
yeah.
other really big acts will cover Beatles stuff, and
Yeah.
there's so many amazing covers. And what's the film? It was all Beatles covers by all different bands.
Oh, we talked about this last week, I think.
Yeah,
on
we've
BS.
talked about this before.
I think it's a
Is it
Sgt.
I
Pepper's
Am
Lonely Hearts Club
Sam
Band.
or
Backbeat?
something?
Oh, I Am Sam with Sean Penn.
Is that? I think that's the right one.
That's
I'll
another
look it
one
up.
of like
But
90s
there's like
bands that do all Beatles songs.
yeah, and just other films that have come out too. Because I really dug like Across the Universe. I
Yeah.
felt like they did a really good job with it.
Yeah, I
and,
got that CD too. Across the Universe. Movie was horrible, but soundtrack was fantastic.
There's Backbeat too. Backbeat was
Yeah.
another movie.
Yeah.
yeah,
I guess that was the early Stu Sutcliffe.
Yeah.
About Stu Sutcliffe.
Hamburg days.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. And like if you have the chance, if you guys go to Vegas, see that Beatles Cirque du Soleil. That was
I've seen it. It was awesome. Yeah. It was
yeah. I've seen a few Cirque du
Yeah.
Soleil, and that one just is like
What is
the
that?
top best one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have that album?
Yeah. Oh, that was a grower album for me, though.
Yeah, you need to see the show because
Yeah.
some people end up having that. Like they did put out a Love vinyl, but that like the show is so crazy. It's so good. Yeah, you got the vinyl.
The
Yeah,
best
awesome.
version the best version of Revolution is on that Love because it's in true stereo. So great. So
And I was
great
going to
show.
talk about that because when I got it, my buddy and I were looking at the songs. We're like, yeah, it's another compilation, but I'll grab it. And when we put it on, we're like, oh,
wow,
my
yeah.
God, I
Some
never
of
would have
those, like,
imagined
that's
what they
like
would
the
do with it.
hits that I showed you guys that I had, and there's just
Yeah.
certain comps where it's like whatever the cut was just ends up being like a really phenomenal track that's even better than one of the album versions.
And it's crazy what they put stuff in there, like on the track Julia. We all know what happened to John Lennon's mom, and on Love, they're like police sirens going off because she got hit by a vehicle.
A
And
drunk
when
cop
Julia's coming on,
killed her.
it's got a it's just crazy of all the sounds that they put in
That's
there.
a good one.
Again,
I think it was called Nowhere Boy, and that's
Yeah.
covering Young Lennon, and like that's
Oh,
what they think all of his like rebelling against the police and going into the hippie movement and that is because like his mom was hit and killed by a off-duty cop that was drunk driving.
And that was when they were just
And
starting to rekindle
their
their
relationship.
yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
she just
that
started to come
Nowhere
back.
Boy is really a phenomenal movie about his like young
Yeah,
teenagehood, young childhood life. It's really
yeah, it
good.
is.
Yeah.
Al,
Yeah.
what's your favorite track off of Sergeant Pepper?
Just going back real quick to A Day in the Life with the ending piano that seemingly, goes on forever.
The slow burn.
I always heard that Somebody to Love by Queen was the exact opposite. It was kind of an homage, but they did the exact opposite at the end. There's that little quick piano, and then just that's it. Cuts, So I always thought that was kind of funny, which is a great Queen song too. The one I picked was Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Again, when I was a kid, and I used to hear that, and I used to listen to a lot of music on headphones when I was a kid, and listening to that and the effects and the way, the voice and with the effects and it's treated and the lyrics as they're singing the lyrics, as he's singing the lyrics, you kind of envision almost kind of like a video of your own in your head, I don't know. It just, that song always took me on a trip,
When you were a kid and you still had that imagination for that.
Yeah. I had no clue what drugs were and it just took me on a trip anyway.
No, you just had your free natural imagination from your childhood. And that's like I can't remember the exact quote, but that's a Lennon quote where it's like every child's an artist until school like beats it out of them. And you have that natural imagination to do art and create that way. And that's what you're experiencing when you were listening to it.
And when you're looking at that album cover, you're looking at all these different colors and just endless possibilities. And
I like the insert. If you have the OG ones, when you have this one doesn't have it. The insert has like a map of who everyone is.
Yeah,
but that one's really. It's really fun. I don't know. That's
and again that
great
album cover is so iconic. I mean, there's been bands that
how many Zappa and like how many other bands do a spoof on it.
Yeah, Zappa were only in it for the money and
I gotta find, I don't know where I put it. I just listened to my new one. My new one has that insert that actually came with it where you can see who like who's who on all of it on the cover.
Right.
Go ahead, Charles. I'm good.
All right.
Charles, what's your pick?
I'm with Kate. A Day in the Life, my favorite Beatles song ever. It's such a move forward for them. I believe it's the epitome, like this is the apex for them. This is as high. I mean, not that they didn't have great songs after this, but this was such an achievement. Lennon had part of the song, obviously, and didn't know what to do with the middle. Paul came up with the little, woke up, fell out of bed. They mirrored it together. You hear Mal Evans count one. Each measure of that orchestration, that's actually Mal Evans, the roadie. What a song. That alone, I mean, it's probably, to me, perhaps the greatest song ever done in popular music. Period.
Wow.
Board. I mean,
That'll
just an
be
achievement
yeah,
beyond.
that song. That song 1,000 years from now will still be remembered. You know,
Yeah.
It's
like Beethoven, Mozart. That'll be
yeah.
Wow.
you
Well,
know.
and they're teaching popular music history in 1,000 years in like space or whatever. They'll cover that one for sure.
Yeah, for sure. That would
That's
be.
just
It's
there's so
timeless.
much in that track that all the changes and the different instruments and yeah, I don't know.
It's totally
It's just
timeless. It doesn't. It's not
Mhm.
dated. It doesn't sound
Mhm.
dated.
No, it doesn't.
And so
Mm-mm.
many bands even today would be like, I wish I could make something like that.
Yep.
You know?
With all the studio trickery, they're still not to that.
It'd be hard to replicate that now, even with everything.
You'd have to have the talent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the brain and
Going back to like, how will the Beatles be remembered, like, hundreds of years, and it reminds me of when I was a kid. I used to watch I don't know if you guys remember Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to watch that, and the premise of that is he gets frozen in a ship, and like 500 years they discover him, and he's 500 years from now, and then he's living in a society that it's advanced, totally advanced and everything. So he's having a conversation with somebody, and he's like, yeah, there was a band called there's a great band called, don't you guys have like the Beatles? Oh, he was at a party, and it was like a DJ, and the DJ was playing like this futuristic music, and he was like, don't you have any Beatles or something? And he's like, and the guy was like, who? He's like, no, not the Who, the Beatles. I just always thought that was hilarious, that scene in that movie. So, but yeah, I'm just saying, like, the Beatles will be remembered, long after we're gone. After
Yeah.
they're gone, we're gone.
Your great great grandchildren will be talking about it one day.
Exactly.
Just like we are. We're grandchildren of those people.
And I'm glad.
Who were
I'm glad.
introduced.
Yeah, and
I
I'm
think.
glad I took my daughter to go see McCartney.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Say that
Mm-hmm.
I got her to see a Beatle, and she loved it, man. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go off a little different on this one. A little ballad that's inside one, and it's with, I think it's a harp that starts off. She's leaving home. I love that song. I think it's beautifully written, and what a story. About the girl that runs away because she's lonely, even though she had all the materialistic things. You know, she wasn't happy, so she's leaving home. It's a great track.
Mm-hmm.
The way that Paul sings it, and then it's like John plays the role of the parents answer back to the cries of the girl. It's great. Hey, I think we need to move this a little bit quicker because Charles needs to get to work.
Oh
believe.
no, okay.
Right, Charles? You need to get to work kind of soon.
We got a little bit of time.
It's 10:39. We're getting there. We're over halfway done. White Album. I can be quicker.
Wait.
What?
No. Magical Mystery Tour.
Oh yeah.
I thought we were skipping it because it's not a UK.
No, we're not skipping Magical Mystery Tour.
What? Well, I got it right here. I put it up because I thought we were skipping it.
Oh no, because that's that's original release.
You bring up an interesting point. It was the only U.S. version that the UK actually adopted. And initially, it was an EP only in England.
Yeah.
On EMI, and they ended up liking the U.S. version, which was atypical. And I'm not wild about the U.S. versions myself. I do like Yesterday and Today. And obviously Magical Mystery Tour, but that's because that's all we know. Anyway, that's all I know. That's the first one I heard was this version. So
Right. So hit it, Kate. Magical Mystery Tour.
This one, I always feel like Magical Mystery Tour is like left off of everything and how people like Beatles stuff. And of course I like it because it's like really weird getting into their psychedelic phase. Picking one off of this one, I had A Dog Named Penny Lane. Man, Strawberry Fields Forever, Baby You're a Rich Man. Like, I really do love a lot of the songs. All You Need Is Love, I feel like, is one of their songs that really was like their whole vibe throughout this time, too, if that makes sense. That was like really how people remember them and their whole vibe in this time. Picking one off this, I think I'd go with Penny Lane, but honestly, one of my favorite instrumentals of all time is Flying. I'm gonna just take the shrink. This is from 1980, and I never opened it until the other day because I got like a wild hair. I was like, I have to open this and play it.
Oh yeah, I saw
so it's one of the 1980 represses, but I'm like, this is older than I am and still sealed, and I've had it sitting on the shelf for like 3 years and never opened it. And I was just like, I'm just opening it. It's been a kooky week. We had like a death in the family. Well, a couple weeks. Death in the family. Nick's grandma had a stroke, and I was like, life's too goddamn short. Like, just open the album, play it. It's meant to be listened to and enjoyed. Don't just leave it on a shelf. And I love this one, but I guess I'm gonna go with Penny Lane on this one. But there's I really do dig every song on here. Maybe like Blue Jay Way maybe is like my least. But that's saying a lot and saying that that's like not my favorite. But I really do dig. They're so good. It's still on my turntable right now. Like, it's been on there, and I'll probably play it all the way through again before I take it off the turntable.
Oh, I love Blue Jay Way. The drums by Ringo.
I like, and that's not saying that that's like maybe my one that's my one off, but everything on here is just even like the instrumental Flying. And that's talking about having that imagination thing, like Al was saying, where it's like you can sit back and listen to that. And maybe I was on some substances up north laying in a grass lawn at dusk and all the trees are dancing and I'm listening to that with my eyes closed and like a killer pair of headphones. Is like, man, you can really hear what they were trying to do and what they're trying to get across with the music on this album. It was made for people to do drugs too. But damn if it isn't a good album and one of their underrated albums.
The track that I don't like on there is one of my least favorites. Your Mother Should Know. I just don't like that song at all.
We've said that before. That one's another one that's kind of a weird. Yeah. I don't know. It's
Magical Mystery Tour. Which way are you gonna go?
I'll keep it quick, man. I'm just gonna Strawberry Fields. Although I can go with many tracks on here, it's actually one of my favorite Beatles albums too. And there's always, I talked about this in another episode. It's like one of the albums that doesn't get discussed much, but I love the album. I have an original pressing actually that I had since I was a kid as well, that I inherited, and has the book in it and everything. Is pretty cool.
Nice.
So Strawberry Fields. I love that song. Go ahead, Charles.
This was an easy one for me. I'm the Walrus. One of my favorite Beatles songs. Lennon wrote the lyrics to outfox professors, as he heard. He got a kick out of writing nonsense gibberish in this song. But also, if you play instrumentation, he puts every chord in this song, which breaks every known conventional musical rule known to man. But that was Lennon. So love it. It's it's up in my top 5 Beatles songs, period. So I'm the Walrus.
Yeah, I Am the Walrus, but then I switched it back to one of my favorite songs that got me listening to the Beatles, and that was Strawberry Fields Forever. I'm going with Al on this one. Even the video was those promotional clips is what they called them when they released that one. And Penny Lane, because didn't they release those as singles before?
Yeah,
Penny Lane,
double A side.
double A side.
Another double A side. Yeah.
Only Penny Lane went number 1. Strawberry Fields was kept off number 1 by Engelbert Humperdinck with Release Me. Yes, it was. It was that broke the streak.
Oh, wow. and it's always something that's, I know that
Engelbert
they,
Humperdinck. How many people are talking about that guy today? Not many.
no, there's not many, and there's a lot of them that are in my way when you're going to the bargain bin. Fucking
Yeah,
over
get
and over
that
and
shit out
over.
of here.
I could have
Yeah.
already had that guy's whole
They're
collection of
pennies
30
on the
times over.
dollar.
Yeah.
I didn't even bother trying to sell them. I just put them in the bin that goes to the thrift store.
Yeah, they're like everywhere. It's like I've never even heard the guy, but I know exactly what he looks like. So yeah, I went with Strawberry Fields Forever. I think it's a fantastic song. Again, Ringo and his drums just killing it,
Aw, man.
and Lennon and his
Yeah.
lyrics, this sharp commentary on there again. I mean, just an amazing band.
One of their most well-known songs of all
Yeah.
time, too.
Yeah,
That was another
Yeah.
great one on Beatles Love because
Yeah.
Giles Martin, who is the best in the business at remastering and fixing
That's
everything.
that handful of remasters that I have, those Giles Martin ones.
Oh,
Like,
wow, they're phenomenal.
get your hands on those. I didn't hold that one up, but that's the one I was saying the inserts really got all the stuff in it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
these with the yellow label like this,
That's
Yeah.
Giles.
those are the Giles ones. Because this
Yeah, they're
one and
great.
this small weird label. Sorry, I don't know what direction to go, but that
Yeah.
small weird label, that's a Giles one.
Yeah.
Those are the mixes to get. Those are the
Corrected.
best. Unless you get a MoFi or something, like those are the best.
But he corrected the pitch of Lennon's vocals because that was one
Mhm.
limitation on the
Mhm.
original recording where
Mhm.
Lennon's vocals were so low pitched, and he brought it back to a natural pitch and kept the music the same, which
Oh, wow.
was really, really cool. It's a whole new way of hearing the song. Plus, it added the cool parts from the anthology, the acoustic build up to it. It was phenomenal. It's a whole
That's
new way.
the-
I recommend for anybody who's into surround sound too to get surround mixes because they're
and those,
they're
like,
fucking phenomenal. So,
what were
Yeah.
those, like the quadraphonic or whatever? You have to have the system,
Well-
but something crazy like that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
the
the box
surround
sets-
mix.
the box sets, the 50th
Yeah.
anniversary sets, they
Yeah.
had come with the Blu-rays with the.
For the
the
CD
surround
sets.
mixes.
Yeah.
I'm really into that stuff, so it's
Yeah.
I mean, it's like hearing the album like the first time again.
Well, and how lucky to have all the tracking where it's like all the multi-tracking and separated original tapes that you could do that and have all these new mixes.
Yeah.
That's some amazing what
Yeah.
Giles Martin has done. I mean, he just the stuff that he did of his dad's work is just amazing. Just is. Okay, where are we at? We just finished
White album now.
White Album, 2 tracks off the White Album, Kate.
What an iconic cover, even though it's nothing on it. And that one, you guys know, I'm just holding them up just because, but
Yeah.
how crazy is it to have an album cover that everyone knows and there's just nothing on it? My 2 tracks, this is November of '68. I went with Happiness is a Warm Gun. Killer Heavy Duty track. That's another one where we've talked before that it's like proto metal, and like Helter Skelter obviously is in there with that really heavy duty sound. And then I did a sweet one. I did I Will.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
What a sweet song. And then that's something of like, I'm engaged. We haven't had our wedding yet, but that's a thing that's like more of a UK thing. I will, instead of like the US we do I do. It's like, oh, I do, but I
Right.
will is longer term. So I think
I've
that's a
never
really
even heard of it.
I think that's a really sweet thing. And I'm a ordained minister, which I've only been ordained online, so it's not like a real thing, but I've done 15 weddings. And that's something that I always ask people that I'm like, do you want to say I do or I will? Because I will is longer term. Like, I will do this for all of time. But people are really into the I do in the US.
So does that mean that I can confess my sins to you? Is that
Go
who I
for
go
it.
to?
I've done 15 weddings, and then a few weeks ago I did a funeral.
Oh, really? Did
Yeah.
you? Wow.
Yeah, it was wild. There was a friend of mine, her family, they couldn't they couldn't afford to do a proper funeral.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting thing to
do,
cover. Yeah, very different than a wedding. But I'm available for christenings, confessions. Y'all hit me up.
I sure will, especially before Easter. I will.
Yeah, you got to get them in before Easter.
Yeah. What did you do with the White Album?
Okay, well, the first one, you can call it proto-punk, proto-metal. Helter Skelter, man. I got to go with that one. I always remember being in bands and we fucking would rock that one out. It's always a fun one to play. And then I got to go with the George song, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. I got to go with that one.
Yeah.
Clapton on that track, with the solo. And I don't think he ever got credited for it, right? Am I correct? I think he didn't get credited.
Not on any of this stuff. It's not in any of this stuff if you look at anything.
Yeah.
His name's nowhere on there,
maybe,
but we just know.
Maybe in that Escher demos.
Yeah.
I got it back there. I'll look. Maybe it says it in that because that's an update of everything, but not in any of the regular original releases.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, Helter Skelter, and I mean, shit, the White Album is nuts. I could have.
That was another like Sophie's Choice one of picking a couple songs. Is like, damn, I'm glad you picked that we could do 2 songs because any double album, like.
Yeah, you had to pick 2.
So those are the 2 I went with. Go ahead, Charles.
I got Happiness is a Warm Gun. It's almost like the history of rock and roll in a song musically.
Yeah.
And an more obscure one, Cry Baby Cry. Off the side too. I love the way Lennon sings that. And the lyrics are great on that track. So never skip that song ever.
Oh, I don't.
But the White Album is up there too with me as far as favorites. So
yeah, I don't skip anything off the.
I don't even dislike Revolution 9.
See, I can't. If I have the record on, I'll play it out. But if it's on streaming or something, it's getting.
Do I love it? No, but do I hate it?
Oh, yeah. I've grown to really love it.
Yeah. I probably should give it a chance again. I'm so quick to just skip it.
What alternative rock is today, where you can hear parts of Pavement and different bands that have put collages together, and it's great. I love it, but I did not put it on there. I'm going to start off with a beautiful song with Dear Prudence. With John's Dear Prudence, it starts off nice and quiet, and it ends pretty rollicking, So I went with that one, and my second pick is going to be on the second record. It was also done with Eric Clapton for the Live in Toronto when him and John took off to go play Your Blues, YER Blues. That's just it's got that great deep riff to it.
Also the Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus.
Oh yeah, that's right. With Keith Richards, with
Mitch Mitchell playing drums.
Yeah, they were called Dirty Mac or something like that.
Yeah.
Dirty Mac.
The second song was just straight Yoko poodling, which was horrible. But Your Blues was pretty good. It was really good.
Your Blues is a great track. I mean, those tracks to start off the second album, Birthday, Everybody's Got Something to Hide Except for Me and My Monkey. That's a great rocker too. And then Your Blues.
Proto thrash riff on that one.
Yeah, it's just, man, it's great. And Sexy Sadie, it's just a great album. I love the White Album. I just do.
Yeah.
Now we get to another album that's considered as one of their best, and this is how they ended their career. They got George Martin back, and they wanted to go back to the old days. And boy, they sure did put their best foot forward on this one. Abbey Road, another iconic album cover. So, what's your favorite pick on here? Okay.
So this was another one that was a toughie to pick. You got some other heavier stuff, like I Want You, She's So Heavy, with some like metal. I don't know, proto metal in my mind of that. How we were talking about that on the other tracks, and
Gothic.
yeah, you get it's heavy
Very
duty. That's
Yeah.
such a good and a turn in how the sound was going too, especially where it's like all these kind of weirder, lighter, and then White Album's got a couple heavier ones, and then this has a couple heavier ones. But my favorite on this is Something. Harrison, obviously, I've said before, is my favorite Beatle, and the lyrics to this are fantastic. It's a short song, but such an incredibly beautiful song. This, I mean, come on, it's Abbey Road. Like, it's just such a yeah. That's my shirt is too.
That's a pop.
Yours is cute as Popeye.
Yeah.
How many? And that's another one like Sgt. Pepper, where it's like how many people have done different covers and different things of it and recreations of it. But it's just such a. There's so many good songs on this one, and it has so many like different styles included in it between the songs. It's just such a great album. God, Come Together, Octopus Garden, Maxwell Silverhammer. I mean, it's just such a. That was a really tough one. I went with Something, but have I said before, as I've said numerous times in the show, ask me in a week, and it probably would be a different song that I pick as the number one that for me. But that's really hard because this is one of my favorite Beatles albums, so it's tough.
Totally their best ballad, in my opinion.
Something's like one of the best ballads. And how I've told you, haven't done a show with me with these guys, but I'm not a ballads person at all. Any hair bands, any other rock bands, I'm like, oh, ballads are like a skip it. But this one is just such a fantastic song. Yeah. I don't know. Go ahead. Go, Al. What you got?
Yeah, this was getting to the point where, because this is one of my favorite Beatles albums, so I play Abbey Road a lot.
It's hard.
But ultimately, I'm going to go with the George song, Here Comes the Sun. When I was a kid, again, this song really stirred up emotions in me. I mean, it always made me feel good. Like, it was just one of those songs that was very uplifting and stuff like that. And I love George's voice on this. I love his playing and the whole band, and it's one of my daughter's favorite songs too. So she really gravitated to this song when she first started listening to the Beatles. Every time this song comes on, she always like, it perks up and stuff like that. So Here Comes the Sun. I'm going to pick that one. I mean, again, Kate, you guys could ask me next week and it'd probably be something else, but Here Comes the Sun. I'm going to go with that one. Give George a little love on this one. So,
yeah.
Good.
Go ahead, Charles.
Good.
I'm gonna go with I think the greatest harmonies they've ever done on record is a little song called Because. And I know it might be cheating a little bit, but I really like the acapella version on Anthology.
Yeah.
Better. And Beatles love as well. But I can have the music on it with it on Abbey Road just the same. But to me, the greatest 3-part harmonies ever was this band, and it really shined on this track. There's so many, man. You never give me your money. This one I wavered through big time. I love it's so heavy, but because it was so cool because of that 3-part harmony, which is something they did so much in the early days. So it was cool how they tied it
bringing
together.
It back.
Yeah, on this last album, which wasn't the last release, but the last thing they did together. So
I like when you see the glimpses of this in that doc, that you're seeing little bits and pieces and nuggets come in.
Yeah.
And that Across the Universe, this one's one of the tracks that really I felt like their cover version, how they pulled this one off. Like Because in that's cool because they do that a cappella, all of them like in the grass singing it. And I was like, damn, that was so good in that.
Yeah. Abbey Road for me, I got the 50 the 3 LP 50th the 3FP anniversary one with the
Mhm.
3, and then they got the alternate inside of it, which is pretty cool. Them going the other way, and and the additions are just a bunch of sessions, and it's pretty cool because on "I Want You," She's So Heavy, which is not my pick, but I just wanted to say this. I don't say word for word, but they're about to start, and Paul said, "Hey, there's this guy outside. He says it's too loud." And then John's out, "What guy?" "I don't know. There's a guy out there." And John's like, "It's like 2 a.m. Who could be walking by?" And then Paul's like, "I don't know, but they told us to keep it down." And John goes, "Well, let's try it one more time as loud as we can." So that's pretty cool on John. But my favorite song on here is going to be "You Never Give Me Your Money." I love that
Mhm.
track. I like the way the changes come. And then, okay, so I've always had a debate, I guess, with myself because I never had a podcast like this. So I get to ask. So do y'all think because starts the medley, or is
Oh, the
Give
sweet.
Me Your Money?
Ah.
Which one starts it? Because pretty much because does keep on starts the connection between them.
It's the sweet, and it's a three-peat, and I call it because
Because okay,
I'm looking at it. I had someone, oh my god, one of my friends is like, play the sweet, play the sweet. I put it on, and somebody else had added something, and it messed it up, and he lost his damn mind. Like, the sweet must be played together. I understand.
yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
So
I get it.
so it
I'd
starts
go
with
with because.
okay.
Yeah. What do you think, Al?
I'm fine with that.
What
I
do you
don't.
think?
Same.
Charles, you think it's the same?
Yeah.
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 Because I think between Here Comes the Sun is its own entity.
Yeah.
But if you hear Because You Never Give Me Your Money and Sun King as the lead out, and then it goes into Mean Mr. Mustard, and that's obviously like a US one, but that I think it's the same on the UK. But the sweet going in that order, I think Because is the lead in.
You
Yeah.
see, and on this one here, it's just this on the sessions. It's just called the long one. That's the title. It's just called the long one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
The
what it
sweet's
is.
the long one. That's
Yeah,
cool.
it's just
Yeah.
called the long one.
Hmm.
Which I thought was cool.
Yeah, I
Okay,
like that. That's fun.
we are gonna hit on "Let It Be," the last album released by the Beatles, but not the last one recorded, which we all know.
It's
But
funny how
"Let
it
It Be"
went.
was the last one that was recorded. Well, was the last one released. So, Kate, how are you gonna do this?
So it's funny because this one to me like wasn't as much of a big one on my rotation, but then watching the documentary like really turned me around on this, which of course I did like certain songs off this a lot, but hearing the documentary and them getting it together and working it out has really made me more attached to a lot of them. But still, Test of Time, Across the Universe, it's always been my favorite song on this, and it still is today. So that was my pick for this one. Great song. It's another like George like transcendental meditation kind of song that he when he was getting into that, you still feel that vibe. Yeah, I don't know. We're wrapping it up, but yeah, Across the Universe.
Cool track.
Yeah. What do you think, Al?
Well, for me, again, I'm going to pick like a more obvious one, but it's one of my favorite Beatles tracks. I've always loved Get Back. I love like I don't know, man. I just love the guitar in it. I love playing it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in a band, we used to always jam on this one too. It's just, I was in a band with and I'm still like really great friends with him. My friend Steve was a drummer, and he's the Beatles nut out of all of us that were in the band. And, I go over there at his house, and he just blows me away with his Beatles collection. I'm going to tell you something right now. It's like, this is like one of the coolest things that he has. But when, he had a friend that worked in a hospital where Sean Lennon was born. Okay. And when Sean Lennon was released, John Lennon signed a release form somehow my friend's friend got his hands on that release form, and my friend Steve has it in his possession. So
Huh.
it's insane that he has this piece. It's like, I mean, it's just like,
Yeah.
Wow,
it's unbelievable.
yeah.
He has it framed. He has it on his wall, and it just blows me away. And I mean, he has other Beatles. If you went into his apartment and you saw like his collection, not just Beatles, but like a lot of different bands, Sabbath and fucking Stones and whatever, man. Zappa. He's a big Zappa fan too. Andy, you'd be blown away by his Zappa collection. But the fact that he has this, man, he just blows my mind. And
especially something like that. No, that's crazy.
Exactly, it's crazy, man. But he has it. So, and I don't know, dude, it's just nuts. But I mean, going back to that, we used to jam Get Back and stuff.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, man, I always loved that track too. So, and watching the rooftop concert, and it's just so awesome, man. So that's my pick.
Powerful performance up there on that roof.
Yeah,
I think that was the best thing that they could have done after hearing all the ideas that they were throwing around during that documentary, and how fitting to play on top of the roof. That and to think that was like their last resort when it's one of the most iconic things that they did. Charles, what's going to be on your pick on Let It Be?
Mine is going to be I've Got a Feeling. I love the once again the bridging of two songs between Paul and John. They had long given up writing songs together, but yet they still could work together. And hey, I only have part. Okay, I got the other part. Or whatever. They become more editors for each other at this point, but it was still one of those times where they put something together, two separate songs, and it's a great track. Let It Be is one of my lesser favorite Beatles albums, but across the board. But I do like this song. So,
Charles and just a couple of weeks ago, I was on Charles and Mark's Freeform podcast, which was pretty cool because Freeform Rock podcast, which we did Let It Be, and my favorite track on there, and it still is my favorite track. The title track, Let It Be.
Yeah.
I love that song. It's just so beautiful. Sometimes it brings me to tears. And I had told this story on the Freeform Rock podcast, but the first time I saw Paul was here at the Toyota Center, and I called my mom when Let It Be started, and I held up the phone and all through Let It Be so that she can hear him sing it, because it's such a beautiful song, and it's got such a different meaning to so many different people. It's just a great track, and I think it's universally loved. And to think that, well, they really, I mean, it sounds like they all came together for our last hurrah on that song, but it really wasn't that way. Kind of Paul had to pull teeth to get some of the guys to help him out or at least be on it, but still, you would have known that there was so much turmoil going on, it was just a great album and a great track. Now we just finished all 12 albums. Now we are going to hit on Past Masters so that we can hit their singles and B-sides and pick a couple of songs from there, because we do know, as we all know, a lot of their singles were not released on proper albums. Big songs like I Want to Hold Your Hand, Hey Jude, the songs like that are so famous that weren't even on an album. So, Kate, which way are you going to go? Which are your two?
Another tough call. It's a lot of heavy hitters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They, and that's just funny later when they drop that like Hey Jude album and it's not obviously one of their studio albums, but Past Masters. I really dig Rain. I feel like that's a bigger one that ended up coming around eventually. And then there's like a big touring cover band called Rain. I don't know if you guys have ever gone to see any of these. Like I saw Rain They were really good, and I think I saw the Fab Four, and that's
saw that.
really fun.
The Fab
They're fun.
Foe-
I mean, it's
Foe
weird
or
to
something
see
like that?
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Fab Four. I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that too. But the Fab Four instead of Fab
it's different.
Foe
Okay.
was one that I saw, and Rain I saw was really good. But I dig that. I feel like that came around later to be one of their not hits, obviously, but more popular off of not ever being on a studio album. And then I did You Know My Name. It's probably a throwaway song of theirs, but I do dig that one. I like when they get that like rashier, kind of bluesier, edgier sound. So that's one that I listened to this all today. I listened to both albums today of Past Masters because they have the volume 1 and volume 2. But yeah, I mean, there's so many hits off of those, like, especially Hey Jude never been on an album. And then yeah, you guys know. What's your pick, Al, on the 2 for Past Masters?
So many great ones on these compilation. Yeah, I'm gonna go one of the greatest riffs, Day Tripper, man. Gotta go with that one. I mean, that's, to me, that riff is up there with, Satisfaction and all those, the great riffs that, Smoke on the Water, all that. But I mean, Day Tripper, man, I love the Cheap Trick version of that too. The way they did it. I posted that cover up on my page the other day. And then I'm gonna go with Revolution, man. I gotta go with Revolution. I love the guitar in that too. I love the heaviness of it, and the lyrics. John just kills on that, and it's the faster version, the one you hear on the radio all the time, than the album version, the slower version, which is great. Also, actually, it's kind of cool. I like to throw that one on once in a while. I get a different flavor of the song, but yeah, Revolution and Day Tripper. I'm gonna go with those two, and just so many you can go with. So, go ahead, Charles.
All right. Well, we didn't seem to cover it, but I have to love "Hey Bulldog" from Yellow Submarine. Cover that.
Yellow Submarine. We skipped it.
That
but
album a week overall, but
I
that
love Hey Bulldog.
Hey Bulldog rules. Anyway.
Yeah, I got that songbook one. That songbook one.
The soundtrack one is cool.
Yeah, it's way better.
That's in the. Oh man! Shout out to It's All Too Much. That's another one that oh my god.
Yeah, it is
so
kind
good.
Of it's my least favorite, but with an asterisk. It's just because you have those the film music on the second side.
It's different. Yeah.
That's the only reason why.
I like they're like the instrumental stuff's fun. Yeah.
Anyway, let's go with my third favorite Beatles song, and the one I believe is the most important one in the history of the band, and that would be "I Want to Hold Your Hand," which was the first #1 single in the U.S., which hit right before they hit the States for the Sullivan Show appearance.
I almost liked that one too.
Once again, another just fortuitous event in this band's history.
Yep.
The first single that Capitol decided to get behind finally went #1 right before.
You wonder if it would have been different too if it was a different single.
So it's such an important song in their history.
Mm-hmm.
And then to the world, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. Oh my gosh.
Then I got to go with from disc 2, "Hey Jude," which is just. I'm a little burnt on that song, if I'm not gonna lie, but it's "Hey Jude."
It's still such a good song.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've done that to myself where I listen to a song too many times that I burn myself out on it. And I was like, why do I do this to myself? But it doesn't make the song bad. It's just me being a lunatic.
"Hey Jude."
And my daughter was singing along to that song at the McCartney show. So everybody at the end going nah.
Oh man. And then everyone with like their phones or their lighter up for the end of it.
It's just amazing, man.
That's one of those songs that like gets everybody on the same page, and you have that like fraternity, like we're all experiencing the same moment together at a live show. It's such a magical thing.
And going back to that Sullivan performance, I mean, how many bands were formed out of just that, of people just watching that performance, man? I mean, it's just amazing. when you think
We got to
about
get
like
on this rock star thing real
that
quick.
explosion, you know, it's like the Big Bang Theory. It's like the nucleus, the explosion was right there.
So
You
that
know,
like yeah, I don't know.
It's
It's just
amazing.
so wild. Yeah.
That's what I was trying to find. That one right there. I like that
That's
one.
the
a lot.
song track.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the song track. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's
I
cool.
was trying to get this. But so Charles, have you done your past masters?
Yep.
Okay. My past masters, oh yeah, Hey Jude, of course. Um I had that burnout factor on Hey Jude, but I tell you what, this week when I was going through all these songs, I think I heard Hey Jude like 4 times. And those 4 times this week, I was so excited. I just thought it was, it's like I almost fell in love with that song all over again. But my first track I'm gonna pick was off the first Past Masters, and it was oh jeez, it was I'll get you in the end. Yes, I will.
Oh,
Which
yeah,
is an
yeah,
early
yeah.
one. I'll get you in the end.
I
So
never
you
realized how many songs off of Past Masters that I'm like, I don't know all the words to this, and this is a Beatles song. Like,
yeah, because it's not on the
isn't that
album,
funny?
you know,
There's so many that I was
on the
like, I've heard all these. I'm sure you've heard them, but I was just like, I don't know all the words to all of these, and that's
and
when,
it's like new to you.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny.
And the second one, I went with Rain. I think Rain is a fantastic track.
Yeah.
Once again, Ringo just going nuts on this as well with
that
his
bass line in there too is insane.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that bass line.
Mhm.
And that's another thing. Paul's bass, man, and so many songs.
And this is one that could have easily been on Revolver, Rubber Soul, and it just wasn't. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Or
I want to look up when they recorded that one because I'm wondering if it was one that was dropped off of something. I want to look
Oh
that
well,
up and
that was
see.
one of those periods, between Rubber Soul
Yeah,
and Revolver.
It was
it
recorded.
definitely.
Rain.
It could have been on either album.
Rain was recorded during the sessions for Revolver. It says.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Huh.
Well, that
Yeah,
concludes-
sometime in '66 somewhere.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Man, that was a great period. Even
Yeah.
because we can work it out, and all those
Yeah.
great tracks like that were during that 66, 65 period.
Mhm.
That's amazing. It was Rain, Paperback Writer. We can work it out.
Insane.
Man, just nuts what they did during that period. And now it takes our favorite bands these days to come up with a new album in 6 years. It's crazy how long it takes.
Oh my gosh, yeah. These
Oh,
guys where it's
God,
like 2 albums
nuts.
a year, 2 albums a year, 2 albums a year, and
Yeah.
then
In 8
then
years,
66, 67, 68, 69, and 70.
I mean-
and it's like,
7, 8 years, they progressed at the speed of light. It was just amazing. the
is that
progression.
rocket ship effect that they're
Yeah, it's like no other band has
Yeah.
ever put out this kind of quality and quantity in this amount of time. It's crazy.
and
Well,
to
listen,
just rip
they
the
broke-
bandage off at the end, and they're just like, we're done.
Yeah,
And
we're done. Where
Yeah.
else are you gonna go?
none of
you
them
know?
are even 30 years old. I just
Yeah.
And like the
it
media
just blows
talks
my
about-
mind.
and what was something was that the media always talked about the getting back together, when they get back together, but they never really talked about it. It was done. They had all
Mhm.
moved on with their lives.
Yeah.
They just
They were having families and like settling down and
Yeah,
having
they
their
were
solo
doing-
careers and like
they were doing their own music, and they were
Mhm.
all becoming different people as they were
Mhm.
when they were the Beatles. There was no way
when you
that
think
they
like
could get back
they
together.
got part of their I count into your 20s part of your childhood, and you get robbed of that by you have all these recording schedules and you're touring and you're this and you're that, and it's like in that time they're growing up, but then they're finally
Yeah.
getting into like adulthood for real on their own when they're not together.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, that's the vibe that I feel when you're looking back on all of it. And as I grow up too, as I've gotten into my 30s and that, and you can look back on it and see it, and it's like, oh, like they're just settling down and
Yeah.
They still really cared about each other. But that's
yeah,
just
they
like
did.
people like when your childhood friends or your teenage or your 20 hoods friends.
Yeah.
And it's like, you still love that person, but if you're in a different point in your life or things change, that's how I
Oh,
feel what was going on with them.
yeah, I think so too.
Very
So that,
very bittersweet thing
yeah,
to happen, but that's part of growing up and becoming an adult and settling down.
yeah. They just grew up and they grew out of each
Mm-hmm.
other. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's just what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And also, there was a lot of
Well, and
money
imagine having all that,
problems,
all that pressure all the time and all the attention all the time, and
and
everything you do is scrutinized.
and just think that I'm pretty sure that when they broke up, there was so much weight lifted off all of their shoulders, all of them. But
Just when
that,
they finally said they wouldn't tour and that, like, could you
yeah,
imagine just being like, we're not touring anymore? And
yeah,
that made such a difference. And you can hear it in the music too,
yeah, okay,
you know?
yeah. Well, that concludes our episode tonight of one of the
Yeah.
greatest bands. And thank you so much, you guys, for going through these albums and picking out your favorites. This was really a really good episode. So thank you for taking the time to do that. Once again, thank you to Charles and Kate and Al. Thank you so much for not
Yep.
just tonight, but for making this podcast what it is. I really do appreciate it. And tomorrow, me and Al will be over at Charles' podcast with Mark and Jerry, the BS sections, and we're going to be doing our top 13 TV sitcoms. A little different from the music, but I think that's going to be a fantastic show. I've already got my 13 plus 22 honorable mentions. So I'm ready to go. I am ready to go. I'm glad that they added cartoons to be okay in part of the.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, one of the biggest sitcoms in the whole world, longest running, is a cartoon.
Yeah, I know, but it's not on my
Yeah.
list.
Hmm.
Odd enough, but I will divulge that and why tomorrow. Any parting goodbyes from Kate? Hey, Kate, you got any shows coming up?
No, I'm hoping I can scramble one together. I'm on
Okay.
spring break next week, and I'm going to do
Right.
my best to attempt to scramble an auction together. I'll put
Right.
I'll put an advertisement. If I can make it happen, I'll put an advertisement out on Black Spinner just so everybody can see. But I like
Oh, yeah,
doing
cool.
my preview shots and everything so you see what I got on board. And then
Yeah.
there'll be a few surprises.
All right. Well, feel free to
I'll share it. If I can
share it again.
ramshackle it, I'll do it. We got some family stuff going on, so I can't promise.
Right.
But I appreciate the
Understandable.
shout outs. Thank you, Andy, for setting this up. This is a
Oh, yeah,
really fun
of course.
one.
Thank
Always
you.
a good time. Nice to meet you, Charles.
Nice to meet you.
And Al, what do you got going on? Do you got any shows coming up?
I got Jerry Cantrell this Saturday.
Okay.
Ooh,
I just
that'll
saw
be awesome.
I just saw Jerry Harrison and Adrian Palou.
Oh, I
like
can't wait. I got my
they were
tickets.
doing
for it.
Talking Heads, and it was amazing. It was really, really great show. Kate would have loved it. That one,
I'm
man.
so stoked, dude. They finally added a Detroit date, and I bought my tickets the day they went on sale the other
Yeah, I'm
day, and
going
they'll
to
be
the
here in
June
June.
show.
Got the
Yeah.
set list right here, man.
Ah, nice. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to know, but I'm so excited, like
Yeah.
over the moon that they finally added a Detroit date because I was really thinking about going to Pittsburgh's like 4.5 hours away from
Yeah.
me, and I was legit gonna drive down to Pittsburgh, and then they
Yeah.
popped off the Detroit dates. I'm insane. I'm so
You don't-
stoked about it.
You don't have to watch your show right now on my YouTube channel. After you see that.
Yeah, I want to
show.
wait because I want to be surprised.
I want to
yeah, I
watch that because.
But yeah, what's that?
I want to watch it because I'm going to go see them in June because they're going to be opening up a part of that show that they're going to be playing animals that Sean Lennon is
Oh,
going to be a
okay.
part of it.
That'll be
With,
really cool.
Yeah.
Sean
they're gonna
Lennon's
open up for them.
phenomenal. I've seen him when it's Lennon Claypool Delirium, but
Yeah.
he's amazing live, and it's such a weird mind trip to see him because he's such a facsimile of John.
John, and it's really
It's
cool that they're going to be
wild.
doing animals from beginning to end.
The TV show.
Huh?
The weird TV show Animals, or which Animals?
Oh no, the Pink Floyd Animals.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now I know
yeah,
what you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah.
because he did some stuff on that weird HBO cartoon,
Oh, did they?
and they did a
Okay.
tour where they were playing all that, and it's like Ty Segall and one of those other dudes that does that, but they
I
all
like
were
Ty
together on a
Segall.
tour.
I think Ty Segall does some fantastic albums.
Yeah,
I like
that's
them.
the show's really weird. It's worth checking out, but the music that's like they did a tour together where they had him on there because he did some
Oh,
music
cool.
for it.
And what about you, Charles? What do you have coming up?
Just BS and a new episode of Freeform coming out this week.
Are you guys doing Rockin' Pod?
I'm going, yeah.
Yeah, shout that out. Stop
Yeah.
by your booth. You guys got a booth or
No,
anything?
no.
That's next. That's not this
Yeah.
Next
weekend, but
time?
next weekend, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like St. Patrick's Day weekend, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
St. Patty's Day weekend.
Yeah.
And the debut episode, Poison, Flesh and Blood, which you'll see what I think about that album. And that's about it. for this
Nice.
week.
That Flesh and Blood, that's not the one with Richie Kotzen, right?
No,
No.
Richie
it's the
came
one
on
before.
after.
Yeah.
Right, Richie Kotzen was on the 4th album.
Yeah.
Native Tongue.
Native Tongue. Yeah.
Okay. All right, because
Flesh and Blood was the last one with CC before he got fired.
yeah, that's the one that's got Reason to Believe, right? Or something
to believe in.
Something to believe in, yes.
And
It's
Unskinny Pop. You can't forget that one.
Yeah, I did want to forget Unskinny Pop. Especially that video. Oh my God. That's crazy. And like I said, I will be on the BS sessions tomorrow. Then after that, on Black Spinner Circle next Wednesday, I will have the hip hop artist Scribble on for a interview. I'm trying to do artist interviews at least once a month, so he's up for the month of March, and then after that, we are going to be hitting the top 10 albums plus 5 honorable mentions for the year of 1973.
Yeah, this is
so,
such a good year. There's so many
73.
amazing albums.
I've already got Jerry on there, and the great Brad Dahl will be on that as well. And anybody else that wants to be on that is more than welcome. So it'll be 1973 in 2 weeks. And then that's what I got going on. Thank you thank you everybody for watching us. We really do appreciate it. And we will see y'all next week. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
Thanks, Andy. Good
Have
to
a
see
great
you.
night.
Al.
All right.
Take it easy, Charles.
Yeah, Charles. Have a good day at work, Charles.
All right.
Yeah, have a good night at work. Oh my gosh, yeah.
All right, bye.
Later, guys.
Bye, guys.